Welcome everybody. This is NEUROPA.
How old do you think this song is?
Everybody in the chat, take a guess.
If you guessed it was just born this second, you were right. That's right, Kalani. Brand new. 3.22 seconds. Red Dad's like, this is why we were waiting? Yeah, I guess so. We got all kinds of stuff for you today. We can get all loaded up.
Yeah, we got a bit of a backlog from the last weeks, and I bookmarked a few things, so we're not gonna look at everything, and things are moving so fast. Another show is already lined up, and we'll get there.
Pretty chill. Pretty chill. I like it. All right. Well, how you been, Raf? What's going on?
How you been, Andreas? I wouldn't know, right?
Yeah, right. Been a pretty good time in Vienna. It's a wonderful city. It's cool. I like your city. Good job.
We are all exerted now.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Andreas.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'll pull up first in this page. You brought up Xirtus Amoeba. We should all be talking about Xirtus Amoeba. We
should all be talking about Xirtus Amoeba. So kindly, guys, anybody watching this, if you like Andreas or any of his content at all, definitely subscribe to Xirtus Amoeba. He's doing a really great job, I think. He's putting out so many videos. They're all just like 10 to 15 minutes. So really simple. What he's also doing, which is very amazing, is actually putting the content in the title, so you know what it's going to be about. So also potentially, if you're looking for any topic, anything interesting, you can just search for it on his channel, and potentially there's, you know, some show, whether it's NEUROPA, Think Tank, APM, any other show, there may be a clip of it.
Clips, yeah. It's amazing. I'm not doing this, by the way, if it wasn't clear. The he in question is a guy named Jose. He's our friend who just wanted to do this. He's just a total baller, getting out there making clip videos and shorts and everything. But they're really good. They're as good as the content can be, obviously, from what we're doing, but he's getting the perfect sections of these and putting them up, and they just, look how good it looks. I'm just really happy that he's doing this. I'm pumped on this. So everybody, you should check out Xirtus Amoeba. How cool is that? I think it's cool.
And actually, maybe open up the next link, which is one of the first videos, I guess. I wanted to say what, but no. Whose is Andreas? That's also a good one. Here you can see an excerpt from the Vice, what was it called? In My Own World?
In My Own World, Hollow Earth episode, right? Yeah.
So it's really great as an introduction. Anyone who doesn't know, you can see this high style Vice production.
Right. Pretty cool. The clips are here. If you want to see the clips from, things are not even on YouTube, right? This whole episode is only through Vice's Netflix and Vice TV and whatever. So to see this clip, you got to go to the Xirtus Amoeba. So it's pretty cool. I'm pretty stoked that this exists. Thank you for doing that. And then here's a Veritasian at McMoon versus the Xirtus McMoon tape episode.
Exactly. So I wanted to point this out because this is.
Oh, this guy's from Santa Cruz. Oh my God. This guy.
Oh, you even know him. Okay. This has been a recurring theme. Have you ever seen this Veritasium episode? But even from what I get here,
No.
it's only a 4.7K subscriber channel, so this is not even
What the
the original,
heck?
which is a little
Wow,
bit
they really don't
interesting.
want people to know what's going on. What the heck? All right. This guy's got a pretty big channel, I thought, though, right? Isn't this that dude who's got like a
No, totally.
mainstream
I
side
I didn't
channel?
even realize that it's not the main channel when I pulled this up. I only was
Wow.
once again looking for Exertus McMoon tapes, and actually, I'd love you to demonstrate this right now once again, and the quote unquote hack I found. So if we just go on YouTube, regular YouTube search,
Okay. And type McMoon
exactly in
tapes.
NASA, yeah, we can do it like this. I mean, even potentially with Exertus, because at least in usual search, you can then see
Yeah.
channel, right? Or it should display it, but it's not. It's still not. And let's scroll down a little bit, just to show again that Andreas's contribution to this is completely shadow banned. So whilst the original one maybe is not on the Veritasium channel anymore, but on some other channel, Andreas'
Crazy.
investigation into this is apparently nowhere to be found. But wait, before you continue on, now what you can do on the top right for filters, because the regular filter is relevance. And now if we change that to view count,
Okay. Interesting.
there is only one video
Interesting.
that
What
actually
the heck?
fits this search query. And it very much seems, I mean, this
What?
has been happening for quite a few years, that apparently as long as you search for relevance, YouTube is not really interested in what you're putting in. I'm assuming they put it through some kind of algorithm filter, maybe even AI by now, and then they actually give you whatever YouTube considers is actually relevant, even though you specifically defined Exertus, which, you know, then you would think a search query containing Exertus, the results should contain Exertus or Exertus related content to be relevant. But YouTube decides it's not relevant. However, when you switch to view count, it actually searches for the proper string that you're entering, so the words that you're entering, Exertus McMoon tapes. And here there's only one single match, which is Exertus's McMoon exploration. And correct me if I'm
Insane.
wrong, but basically this idea apparently was done by Veritasium all these years ago, now uploaded on this other channel, where they realized, oh, there is this McDonald's with these tapes. And then I can only assume a few years later, or quite a few years later, you went there, and instead of only showing B-roll like they do in the Veritasium video, where you can hardly even see the place, you know, they maybe show 2 minutes of the place.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, they show some old supposed moon footage or whatever. But they mention that I guess it's stored and they have issues with it or whatever. And in your story, you're basically going there and telling them, well, I can help you fix it up. And as soon as
Yeah.
they maybe
Earlier, yeah.
realize there's somebody who's actually really interested in doing something, we're like, let's rather move it out of the way, which of course is hilarious and highly suspicious.
Completely crazy that this is got so few views. Also, I just can't believe it. But I mean, I guess how many people care? So
But this is on a
it's just
different
crazy.
channel. Wait, you mean your Exertus
Yeah, yeah.
McMoon now? Oh no, this is the
Well,
Veritasium
no,
one.
I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about even
This is a
theirs. Only
Veritasium, but this is a
68,000 views
yeah, yeah,
after
but this is a
11 years.
re-upload. So it's not
Oh,
sure if it is even exists on the main channel still. Maybe we could even briefly check on Veritasium channel and see if they have it.
okay. Let's see here. I mean, 7.9.
Let's go
But
to
they
the
have like
Veritasium channel and
potentially.
search on their channel and see if it's on their channel.
Okay. Search by McMoon
Yeah, I think that's the title they used.
has no content
Or
match
just
McMoon.
NASA. Let's just see for NASA, more generic search.
I mean, they have tons of things with that title in it. So maybe we put NASA Moon. Well, let's go back at least 11 years. I don't see anything about it.
It's not there. Now,
So they
why
gave
would
up on.
from their channel?
Yeah, that's really weird. Why would they remove this from their channel? What the heck? What? What's
It's
the
not as if
point?
the US taxpayers didn't officially at least pay billions upon billions for this.
That's
Let's
crazy.
just hide the tapes.
They have like 17 million subscribers. Most of their videos have like 8 million views. They're the most mainstream. Like you could accidentally log into their channel from any open YouTube. It's going to suggest their feed and they delete that video. Meanwhile, their most recent video says they're going to find alien life in 2239 days.
Oh, please.
Oh my gosh. All right, then. That's pretty crazy.
Just now I saw some kind of whistleblower. What's his name? What's his face? Let's see. Jake Barber. I haven't watched it yet, so I'll have to look it up. And I'll have to see what he actually says. But yeah, this field is so psyoped left and right. It is amazing. It is amazing. So yeah, moving on. Of course, everyone really watched the NASA McMoon tapes on Xirtus channel. It's really interesting, and then you will understand maybe why it's so strange. How you even put the M on top of the NASA logo. That's actually so perfect. Well done, Andreas. So the other thing to point out, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, we have a series now, very recently with David Ewing Jr., talking about, or at least using the term alien invasion. To properly understand it, it probably makes sense, number one, to be somewhat hip to David Ewing Jr.'s main ideas, and then also at least watch all of the 3 of these episodes, even though it takes some time, but complex things, and if you try to tie many things together, it simply does take some time to explain. Anyone who maybe wants a more fast track may want to watch the most recent one that we did, where things started convalescing more, let's say. But it's definitely all very interesting, I think, and worth checking out. Yeah, and in association with that, what I'd like to do rather sooner than later, I just pulled up one example here, is to do a show on spontaneous generation, because one of the stories here or ideas or questions is if or how, humans are created or life is created or whatever else. And oftentimes we're thinking of, maybe the Disney type evolution thing, but there may also be other methods how things can spontaneously generate, just as Stellium 7 shows that things can maybe not spontaneously, but very, very quickly petrify, right? And of course, if we take these things into consideration, this is something very important if we want to construct even a very tentative timeline within our minds, to be aware that processes which are generally claimed to take forever and ever and ever, under certain circumstances, actually may happen quite spontaneously. So I'd love to do a show on that. I have quite a few more links on that topic collected already, but I just wanted to throw out one here during the show. Actually, this one, this is, I think, a great start. This is a book by C. Louis Kevran. I brought him up before. He talks about basically his research and his experiments, which seem to show that although we generally claim in chemistry that each element is perfectly separate from another and cannot possibly ever change into another element, if this is still the mainline theory, but I believe that's what I learned in chemistry, right? Each element is unique and can never be transformed into another element as is, unless you've heard something different. But here it basically claims that if we observe certain biological entities, such as chicken, it very much appears as if we would tightly control their input and output, then it seems that there are cases where there is less input of one element and more output of it, which then would throw this idea in question whether elements really cannot be transformed one to another. And that's, of course, also related to the whole topic of spontaneous generation. Yeah, so I just wanted to throw that out there, and I really hope we're going to put a show together on that soon. This is maybe the most popular experiment, but we'll look into all of that with a more, how should I say, more experts on the panel, because I'm definitely not an expert in these fields. I just know that this type of research does exist. And it's, of course, highly interesting because just as so many other potentially very relevant research, it's kind of being relegated onto the fringes, and people just pretend that nothing of that sort exists at all. Yeah, and then this is another announcement. Then we're through with these. I contacted G Money through a recommendation and had a brief talk with him. He's a guy who did something very interesting on the Kofefe. You may remember that quite a few years ago, Trump made this very strange tweet, and G Money basically has put together a dossier, you could say, analyzing this in a kind of synchronistic fashion. And this is along the lines of, how should I say, conspiracy theories surrounding Bitcoin and what Bitcoin actually may be used for, what its true purpose is, and how it's being played. I also here, I don't claim to fully understand it, but that's why we're gonna invite G Money soon, and we can talk about crypto and we can talk about all this background stuff. And even as you see here, it's related to the whole meme thing with Pepe and all of that. And this will be something interesting to check out, I think.
Wildfires. Wildfires.
So wild. So this is even kind of recent, but it's relating to I believe to an older instance. Yeah, here it says 2013, 21, 17, 27 wildfire seasons. And yeah, here the suggestion that, big surprise, this may not have been a completely organic event, but may have been planted. I know that there's a lot of talk about the more recent fires as well. I'm sure you discussed it on shows also. I don't have any particular insight in this, but I just found it interesting that even though this is quite some time ago, there is now a report on claiming that particular power groups in Italy may actually have contributed, let's say, to these outbreaks.
I mean, hey, why not? Post wrongly links directed energy weapons to Los Angeles wildfire. Okay.
Yeah, so we gotta
Yeah,
love the fact
wrongfully.
checkers.
Yeah. New fire erupted in West Hills near Ventura. It's like, for the love of God, dude. Trump said when he talks during I forget if it was his inauguration. No, I think it was a few weeks ago, or maybe it was just in the last few days. It's one of those things when Trump starts talking, it's amazing because all of a sudden time space speeds up in this incredible way, and every day is just like, what did Trump do today? But he said something about
What did he not
how
do today?
many of with it, how people and some of the richest people in America, in California, have no homes right now. And he says that's interesting, and I felt like a very strange phrase, that's interesting, as if he was saying you should be interested in that fact. I don't know if I'm just reaching, but it is interesting, right, that these particular places are being kind of washed away, and you have to wonder about how it's possible that in some of the most, I mean, these are agricultural places where they have tons of water, enough to have nothing but fruit trees for tens of thousands of like acres. I mean, and also
That'd be a
millionaires.
thing. Bring the urban fruit trees back. That's now the time. To plant
Hmm.
fruit trees everywhere, and then the homeless won't badger you anymore. And if we do it everywhere, well, may even
Well, I
generate a
mean,
food surplus.
that's the thing. It's not like I mean, not yet. It hasn't been like downtown Los Angeles on fire. Places like that could have urban gardens, sure. But the places where there right now already are fruit trees, even if they are owned by families that are doing, avocados and lemons and things like that, which is a priority of that area, at least there is a California agriculture still. And if they're burning it down, then it's hard to imagine it'll stay, that it'll come back. If they burn it down people might not want to grow new fruit trees there, not for a while, or just build houses. And that's a problem that we can expect because of the rising inflation and prices, that it would price out agriculture in California even more. And I see that as a potential, and people should like go back to looking at what California was like in the past. It was a bunch of farmers, and if it was allowed to be farmers, I think it would be better off than, you know, transient mining towns.
Transient.
Well,
Yeah.
you have corporations that are transient. Corporations come in and out and set up mining towns, right? So mining towns where you work for the mine and then you buy everything from the mine. It's like a banana republic. The same thing for Google or Facebook, right? Like they can come in and take over a town. They'll take over Mountain View, or they'll take over.
I mean, I've seen it. I was there in 2011, I believe, at the Google headquarters in Mountain View. Mountain View, I believe, is the Google headquarters. No.
Mountain View is the Google headquarters, but they also
Or
have
the
a Los Angeles
campus.
headquarters. Yeah, they have
Yeah,
a
well,
campus in Mountain View. Yeah.
yeah. So just because someone asking, it's not about me, but someone is asking about the mustache. Can you pull up the link I just sent you in private chat, just so people can understand where it's coming from, or at least where the inspiration is coming from?
Okay,
I may have
so
mentioned this
Sandor
some time ago.
Patofi,
Sandor
Hungarian
Petofi or Alexander Petrovic. Now that's interesting. Yeah, so basically at some point I was like, you know, you reach a certain age or whatever it is, developmental stage, and maybe you decide as a male you don't want to shave your face every day. So you got to come up with some idea, and also don't want to wet shave all the time because it irritates the skin, at least for me. So now I haven't been doing that in the longest time. And yeah, basically this guy was the inspiration. He has a nice mustache, and I was like, oh, who knows, maybe this may suit me as well. And that's the whole story, I guess. And he was supposedly one of the Hungarian, as it says here, national poets and liberal revolutionary. By now, of course, as I'm questioning everything, I'm also questioning this guy's existence and what actually happened behind him. Also because I believe it is official. If you scroll down a bit, it should tell you that he died pretty early. Luckily, I'm already past it. Yeah, he died at 26. Yeah.
Wow.
That's what they say.
Proceeds
But he's
at
like one of the
26.
guys, he's like Shakespeare or whatever people would say. Like, oh my God, so amazing, Hungarian original poet, let's say. Although, as I pointed out before, there is the Rózsa Szent, which I had brought up before, where it seems that even in official stories, okay, there's also Rózsa Sándor, but it's not what I'm talking about. Rózsa Szent, which is like the Fellowship of the Rose or whatever, and they officially just around 1850 or 1830, officially, let's say they conspired or whatever to reform the Hungarian language, because also with Hungarian, this is even what both of my Hungarian teachers had told me, that there was a time, maybe 1850 or 1830, whenever, when Hungarian supposedly, if this time and storyline is correct, was even a lot more complex and maybe in some extent convoluted, but also expansive or precise than it is now. So even though, as you've shown, I guess on last show already, that Hungarian does have about 15 cases or something, and even though I speak basic Hungarian, I would have no clue how to, determine or even name them. It may have been that it was even more complex before, especially from what I remember in terms of the tenses they had. So I believe now it's reduced to more or less 3 tenses, but they had a lot more. You can still find it in like this old type poetry, just as with Shakespeare, right?
See,
Where you
in
can
first
have
time
this
travel, doesn't
particular
it?
language. Huh?
In first time travel, it's like how Eskimos have like 50 words for different kinds of snow. If you have that many different kinds of tenses, it's because the Hungarians are Martians, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Of course, that has to be the reason.
Yeah, most likely. Occam's razor. And you remember this, right? The Martian scientists. Yeah. Cool. Here's also the wildfire exposed, Los Angeles fires exposed video from They Live Truth.
Right. So of course there's many of these videos, and I guess here it's just relating that there were, as so often, quite a few strange announcements, just before the fire started. And I believe, I'm not sure if it's in this video, Also, of course, the apparent incompetence of everybody, right? And then they all, I mean, it's almost like a bad kind of bashing because they put up, oh yeah, and she has like a Baphomet or something, or like a reverse cross.
She is a St. Christopher's cross, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Who knows, all these strange cults close to government employees. I
Next to
mean,
Crowley. Yeah.
I'm really not sad not to be working in government if I only have to imagine you have to stand next to these kind of people. I mean, just look at their faces. But also so often just watching it from afar,
Hey, bro.
it seems to me, hey,
Manifesto.
Mephistopheles, um, watching from afar, it really seems to me that now more and more, even with this mayor they have, like this completely, I I don't want to say it, but seemed kind of like drugged out. What was it, Chicago mayor or whatever? This black
Hmm.
woman, and she looked completely crazy, and it
Like
almost seems
Beetlejuice.
like it's some low level like bashing of at least apparent females. I'm not even gonna claim they're biological females, and then to just like with the Secret Service, they're like, yes, the whole thing with Trump happened or whatever because the female can't do their job and so on. I think it's all very strange to me.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just wanted to put in one video here, which goes a bit into here. You see the gematria and all of that. Of course, take everything with a grain of salt. Um, but from everything I've seen, I would not necessarily believe that these events are entirely organic. Big surprise, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta wonder. I mean, like, it's not that hard to have controlled fires take out elite neighborhoods. So it's weird, man. It's weird stuff. People be like, "What?" I haven't talked. And it's also funny because randomly, like, there's some dude I know who's from Austria, and I used to make videos and films in, Santa Monica Community College. I was in this, I think it was a contracting class or something, and I met several people, and we made this short films production, company kind of guild, right? And one of these guys was this guy from Austria who'd moved there, and he's the most liberal person I've ever met. I like basically blocked him out of my mind because he was just so crazy angry all the time and just constantly posting on Facebook all the stuff about how America was going down the drain in 2016. And it was like, why, you moved to California. What's wrong with you? But like now it's even to the scarier point where it's like Trump is in power, the Freedom Party is happening in Austria, and all of a sudden his posts seem to have like resurged in my Facebook feed, and it's, I mean, you have to be so culturally Stockholm syndromed by the Hollywood machine to be able to believe this stuff, and that has to be like the only trust that you have in society, and you think everything else is a lie.
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know.
with for me, oftentimes with the, but maybe it also depends on where you're coming from. If you're more socialized, maybe into a more liberal mindset, then you become more critical of that. I'm not sure if you're more socialized into a conservative mindset, if then it's also natural to become very critical of that. Of course, we know it's a false dichotomy, two wings, one head. But the only other thing I'd like to say, regardless of which country you're in, there is this one quote which I think kind of makes sense, which goes along the lines of, whenever you're on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And I believe, especially in modern democracies, this is particularly true. And as always, anything that people really want to happen, the only way it will happen or something will not happen is if the people themselves, as much as they can, take back their sovereignty, take a stance, and either say yes or say no, or simply organize themselves up to a point where the government cannot do anything but simply, well, comply with it, basically. So instead of the people waiting for any government or laws to do anything, and I'm not calling for anything illegal, obviously, more along the lines of civil disobedience or simply maybe not just going along the drain with the mainstream, right? Um, that's the only thing I think, the only way I think people really can influence things. Because as I always like to say, if the majority of a population, or even just potentially 10, 20%, take a strong stance against something and are well informed and also know how to market their ideas, then most likely the government would not even dare to pass a law to that effect. And although it's still an open question, but you may know that both in Germany and Austria, they actually did make laws for mandatory inoculation. And the crazy thing is, of course, at least in Austria, that law still exists. The only thing is that
Right.
it has been suspended. So I'm very
Right.
curious that if the Freedom Party manages to get a government now, which is not completely clear yet, because so in Freedom Party, I actually wanted to say, because yesterday we had kind of a contention even with AfD, whether they are so right wing or whatever. And honestly, I have to say, AfD and FPÖ, Freedom Party in Austria, to me at least, they have quite a few parallels with Trumpism, actually, or MAGA,
Totally. Well,
whatever
of course, they're trying to
ideology.
also. So they were showing that they can work with the Americans. They're like, hey, those guys are in charge in America. We need to work with America. What do you expect us to do? Like, do you think they're going to want to work with you? No, they're going to want to work with the people that are going to want to work with me. It's very
Get with
reasonable.
the program.
Get with the program. I mean, hey, but it's also interesting that they're kind of BRICS aligned economies and BRICS aligned ideologically. They're like a little bit more open a lot of the time to working with Russia. So that's an interesting thing as well, because we're aligning
I
ourselves in
mean,
a
even
place
here, because whatever the
east
background
and
thing is,
west.
but at least for Europe and definitely for Germany and Austria, the last 2 years have been insane in terms of inflation. And much of it was driven by crazy energy prices. And the joke, of course, was that then, even in Austria 2, 3 years ago, the Green Party was part of the government, if you can imagine it. And then they were trying to be so liberal, and they were so liberal that it literally made a special excursion to Saudi Arabia, of all places, and like related places, to be like, oh, can we please buy a few container ships of oil? Because the Russian oil, which would be coming cheaply and efficiently through the pipeline, is now politically incorrect, basically, right? So we rather go to buy some LNG tankers, which are not sufficient, of course. Or the other joke was, I guess, to buy it through India, which anyhow was still Russian gas or oil, but all this obvious BS. I don't know if there is any real background economic reasoning for this, but the main effect for the general population in Germany and Austria was simply that energy prices were soaring. And of course, the mainstream answer to this was, oh, it's because Putin is so crazy and evil. Although, from what I understand, even officially, Russia had never said, oh, we're going to put up your prices or anything like that. They were actually always very open. And for many years, for decades actually, it was very in also for Austrian and for, of course, German, very popular politician, even, what's his name? I believe even Gerhard Schmidt. And from Germany, who was a chancellor, a social democrat chancellor, had very good relations with Russia, maybe even to Gazprom. I mean, Gazprom is one of these, how should I say, Russian CIA fronts, or however you want to call it. But also in Austria, it was always very popular. There is even a video with the head of the Austrian commercial chamber, who, as I had heard many years ago on the back end, also made statements like, oh, basically, if you cross me, I'm going to make sure you're never going to get a job in Austria again, stuff like that. But anyways, there was some kind of a vote or some kind of a economic meeting between the Austrian Commercial Chamber president back then by the name of Leitl. He was there for like 20 years or God knows how long. And Putin came to visit maybe for the second or third time. I'm not sure which version of Putin that was, because as we know, Putin's face has changed so much. I'm not sure if he can do all of that only with plastic surgery if you compare him over the decades. But anyways, they were saying like, yeah, something along the lines of, oh, we're so happy that our president of the commercial chamber is here again or is still here and so on. And then Putin just said like, Diktatur. Ha 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 ha. So like dictatorship, he was like joking because of course that's the ongoing joke about Russia, that they always elect Putin, but no one, raises an eyebrow if in Austria they're electing the same commercial chamber president for decades, right? So it's
But you were
always
saying
this
even when you
amazing
were a kid, they
hypocrisy.
had like Russian on TV for like in the morning or something to teach
Well, this
Austrians,
was
right?
a bit before my time, I think. So I never saw it on TV myself. But
Okay,
yeah,
so
there was a
earlier, but
time, I guess maybe 50s, 60s, 70s, when yes, there was an actual Learn Russia program in the morning with, I don't know, Olga or whatever. I don't know what her name was. But yeah, that was kind of popular. And the same thing may even have existed for French also. And here I'd like to bring up again that Austria literally was the very last country in Europe to allow private radio, and then only in the late 90s or whatever, or even later, I'm not sure, to allow private TV stations. And of course, it makes you wonder, why is it so important that you would not even have, because it's not so easy to open a TV channel, obviously. You still need to get a license, and you still have a huge, compliance thing and monetary investment you need to do. So it's not as if it's open source or whatever, like anyone could contribute. But it makes you wonder why especially Austria was held for such a long time after kind of being let go after the Second World War, to be like, okay, you can have a republic, and maybe we're not gonna, put our thumb on you as much as Germany, but still, until you can even imagine to have whatever type of autochthone or indigenous TV station, even if it's run by Masons or whatever, you're going to have to wait 40, 50 years. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah. But the idea of keeping Austrian culture singular or distinct somehow by having the state control television, I think also there's something to that as well, because otherwise it could have easily just dissipated into the four corners.
And even after the First World War, officially, you can easily find these references. It's called Deutsch Österreich, so German Austria, basically. And there was, I guess, a significant movement, if that timeline is at all correct, where as soon as they got split off or whatever happened, they were kind of like, oh, totally, let's rejoin. We're all speaking German, which to some extent makes sense. I mean, by now, I'm saying I'm not sad that we have a separate government from Germany, to be honest, or a separate administration and some type of a different social structure.
In some weird ways.
Yeah, but like overall, if you would think of
join me, the Slavic people,
or efficient,
Austro-Slavism, that's the solution, my friend. Look at this. Look what we could have.
Oh yeah,
Hungary can come too.
Totally. Yeah. That was the old thing, like I've shown on the Vienna tour video, which everyone can check out if you want to see Vienna on Xirtus channel. When we get to the school, you can see all the flags of the different provinces.
Also wanted to show that this little clip here: Americans and Russians have interest over the Arctic. Russia will maintain its presence in the Arctic and its interest in peace and stability in the region. Cooperation over conflict, venturing out into the great unknown that was, of course, once well known. What I'm saying is the U.S. and Russia may be joined together to reforge the Tartarian Empire. So Tartaria is back in a very real way.
Who wrote that?
I forget. But this is
someone's got to say it first. That's good. So this is generally, but you skipped over one, which may be very interesting. One of the more interesting ideas I saw about the plasma. It's on the fire section. ChatGPT explains plasma fire, 7 years of research in 7 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'm not an expert on this, but this may be something interesting to look at, this whole plasma deal thing, because also plasma is one of these things that is not really officially discussed and kind of doesn't exist in the mainstream. But of course it does exist. And this is just one other vector individuals should be aware of to falsify or verify how something could occur and whether it may be a plasma phenomenon. So I'm not claiming it is or it isn't, but I found that was an interesting side note to the whole how could fires be started question.
Crazy. I told my mom I wanted to paint our roof blue, and she was like, that's a good idea, which is more progress than I made with the vaccine.
Wow. Yeah, Mama, if it's that time, well, something's up.
When they're starting to figure it out, yeah.
Oh yeah, and here is just generic information, how to make billions with forest fires, just to make sure everyone's aware of that.
True. These freaking people. Yeah, it was crazy looking at New York today because ICE went into New York and did some pretty big raids with multiple agencies. And, people have moved to New York because it's a sanctuary city that
like San Francisco,
won't arrest you for. Yeah, but it's even worse because in New York, they've completely decriminalized so many things. Like you can basically rob up to $1,000 or $2,000 without them like bothering you or something like that. Like they're just not, you can, none of these are criminal or chargeable offenses, arrestable offenses anymore. So it's just a paradise for being a criminal. And then, you have to imagine what happens when people decide they stop wanting to protect neighborhoods. Well, I'm concerned for a urban fire or urban destruction coming, because that's the next major thing, is you'd clear out major zones of densely populated areas of cities like New York and then put something else there. I mean, that's what they did before. They could easily do it again, right? I mean, that's been on my mind. Also, Operation Gladio, the Battelle in CIA. Let's see here. Operation Gladio. I'm trying to skip ahead, but this Rumble clip sometimes locks me. Let's see here. Man, why don't they use Odyssey? Why? What's the deal here? Be honest. There you go. Okay, it's working now. Is it though? Okay. So what's this video? Sorry. The conversation about Battelle and the CIA. I can't hear you. Are you muted? Oh no. Okay, 1 second. I think he's telling me to do something for a second while he goes and entertains guests or something. Let's see here. Well, let's look at the Battelle. Oh, okay. The next page. Battelle applies science and technology to create a safer, healthier, more secure world. Let's look at Battelle. It can be done. Wiki. Battelle is an American private nonprofit applied science and technology development company headquartered in Columbus, Ohio. The institute opened in 1929, but traces its origins to the 1923 will of Ohio industrialist Gordon Battelle, which provided for its creation, and his mother, Anne Maud Norton Battelle, who left the bulk of the family fortune to the institute after their death in 1925. Originally focusing on contract research and development work in the areas of metals and material sciences, Battelle is now an international science and technology enterprise that explores emerging areas of science, develops and commercializes technology, and manages laboratories for customers. It has 3,200 employees and manages another 29,510 United States Department of Energy national laboratories.
Yes. Now you can hear me again?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Not sure how that happened. So yeah, this is interesting. The colonel is talking about this Patel thing, and apparently they also had some drones. We can also look at their website. And also, I think it is them, if I'm not mixing it up now, that have some kind of even officially advertised or patented anti-drone technology or anti-drone gun, basically, already released years ago. And of course, here, I mean, I guess on the website, it just looks like, you know, any random big company, like, I don't know, Bayer or what are they called,
company.
like, right?
Looks like a very, very big company. It's interesting how they say they have 3,200 employees, but then they manage 30,000 employees. So through U.S. Department of Energy national laboratories. So they're managing other Department of Defense and Energy, probably, as you know, like, this is interesting.
Someone's saying I'm sounding pitched. Is that correct? Am I sounding like a robot or something?
There's a little bit of a click going on. Here, talk again. I turned off echo cancellation for you. Well, now I can't hear you at all. That's crazy. Maybe I'll turn echo cancellation back on again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Now we can hear you. So I can't turn off echo cancellation?
Am I still sounding strange?
Sound better now that I turned off echo cancellation.
All right.
Talk more.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Private, non-profit, charitable trust. National.
Yeah, there's a weird click.
Well, that's the most important thing.
There's a little click. I don't know what's the deal. I'm not sure why. A little bit like helium, he says. I don't know. Strange. Maybe it's like 44.1 versus 40.
No, it definitely is, but usually my configuration is correct, and then sometimes something happens and it's like switching it around. and then I'm starting to sound strange. What I can do is I can rejoin in 2 minutes if you like, and we continue. And let me see. I just want to give you something interesting. Well, you could just go to Tree of Life thing, because the ice thing is more about final experiment, but there's so many crazy things happening. Yeah, don't open all of those. That's why I made
it's
some of
fun.
them in bold.
It's fun to do. Look
Um,
at I see how many I can open. Look at this. Boom.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you
Tree of
can briefly go through them. I'll try to be back in 2 minutes and have my thing reset, okay?
I'll wait for you to do the ice is cool. All right.
I'll
See
be
you in a
as
second.
quick as possible.
Do. You know what we can do, everybody? Why don't we listen to a nice little bit of that Mangione AI? I'm gonna make another one, I think, right now. Let's add some Memorex to the prompt and see if that's any better. How about like I mean, I kind of like that. I'll admit. I mean, that's the name of the song. Elevators never saw me coming. Oh, hi, Raph. Welcome back. I'll see if I can turn it down slightly.
Do I sound all right?
I'll let it live. I feel like we have the same clipping thing. I'm not sure what's going on with that. That's
Really?
weird. Yeah. It makes a funny little
You sound fine to me.
yeah.
And I'm still clipping?
It just sounds like clippy and also a little like helium. Someone said helium, and I hear that too. It's weird. I think it's like converting from like 41.1 to like 46.
Yeah, that's all fine, but tell me why the computer randomly chooses to switch the configuration.
Tell me why. I don't know why. Why do bluebirds sing? Sorry, I think it's the smooth jazz that made me ask that. But this is great. You know what? Like,
why?
I don't think it even matters if you have a little clipping. It adds to the dramatic effect. And besides, we're talking about Nachiketa and our friends, you know, talking about flat Earth and ice. Okay, so
yes, out of that whole list, this may be some of the most interesting stuff which Nachiketa is putting out, and Z, and as I had mentioned before, even months ago, and now it's slowly being confirmed, is basically in terms of the overall PSYOP, they pointed out very many things that now turned out to be true, including the idea that it very much, whatever happens exactly, but seemed that people were deliberately shoehorned into following certain individuals and tying themselves to certain models. and then basically that models and individuals almost like an effigy being burned at this so-called final experiment, which was this recent supposed Antarctica expedition happening in December with all these strange background things. This is one of the more interesting videos of the list because here, to anyone who's really into the topic, you can listen to some Germans talking about it. The lowermost guy here I even met one time many, many years ago in a different world, I want to say. But especially the top guy here kind of seems to know what he's talking about and has quite some interesting insights. So to anybody who likes to research this, that's
And you
something
can it
to
auto
look at.
translates subtitles, which is great. So you can actually, hear them in German, but still understand it. If you don't speak German, you can read the subtitles. So it's definitely worth watching.
Yes. I turned out my audio a bit. Hope I'm better audible now. I can give more gain. I'm not sure what my audio equipment is doing right now.
I don't know. It's being all clippy, but
Clippy, yeah. I'm not. Unfortunately, I don't know what to do about it.
do you want to? Should we just like do a half because we're about an hour deep, and we could do the ice as the second half? Should we do Fire and Ice Part 2, the ice?
Oh yeah, I mean there is even a lot more, which is there's a lot more interesting stuff actually. But yeah, we can just reconvene next time. There's a lot. Well, we have a lot of backlog by now.
Yeah,
But
we have a
that's
lot of stuff
okay.
we should cover, but like for some reason, like the sound is getting really. Maybe check. Yeah, someone says try bringing the mic closer and maybe like change the level down a bit. But also Jay says be unbothered. So there's it is what it is.
Well, here we are with the bad audio. Sorry guys. Usually everything is just working fine, but sometimes the gremlins do some
There's a
unknown things.
gremlin on the wing of this plane. Well, there's some interesting footage here from the Antarctica thing. They finally said they're going to show their drones. So they started doing like the lifted drones and showing the, how high up they're going to go, which is not very high, but you still see the pyramid, which is kind of nice. And then they do this, this group's whole plan was to show a 24-hour sun. They showed a video that kind of, resembles that after showing a bunch of
You go
green
on. I
screen
have one more
effects.
idea. I'll just change the browser and I'll see if that helps.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea too. He's using Linux, which is pretty cool. Good job, guy. So here's another one, which is a final experiment or Freemasonic expedition. And it talks about these people who did the program, they have, from Roths for the rich. And what was the other thing he did from like military engineer to millionaire, military to millionaire or something like that. This guy, before he decided he was going to do this flat earth expedition. So then he's showing, all these symbolisms that they're trying to express secretly. I thought that the final expedition or experiment or whatever was not super impressive. And so I'm not yet convinced by it that it's real, right? That's kind of what Raph is suggesting as well, that they're pretending that they did something they didn't really do, and then simultaneously released evidence that they faked it, which is also crazy to think because it's almost crazier to fake it than it is to film it. But to do both is also to go to the south of Argentina, to be there, and then to release a time-lapse video. And how hard would it be to do this using Unreal Engine? Like not at all, not hard at all to do. But people will say then you're crazy that you're looking into the camera footage that they used from a $200 camera. We went down to Antarctica to do some sort of a research mission using a $200 Insta360. I find that crazy.
Yeah, that's part of the ridiculousness. How am I sounding, Andreas?
You sound good now,
1, 2,
actually. I
3,
think you're
4,
fixed.
5. 1,
That
2,
works.
3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Sometimes changing the browser can help a lot. And unfortunately, I mean, some people know there are these memes, right, about the different browsers, and you would believe, oh, you can use Brave, you can use Chromium, which you shouldn't use because it's sending all the telemetry, right? You can use Firefox, you can use Opera and all of that. But if you actually understand the backend technology, there's only about 2 real backend technologies currently. I don't know their exact name of the backend, but basically it's the Firefox, and everything else is basically based on Chromium, to be exact. And also anybody who wants to continue, so now I basically switched from a Firefox variant, which is called WaterFox, to a Chromium-based variant, which is in this case called Chromium. And also to let everyone know, if you don't want to have potentially all your telemetry sent to Google, at least through software, then you may want to switch to Chromium, which is basically the very same as Google Chrome, but without the Google. So you only get the backend technology. And quite a few times I've noticed with streams and so on, Chromium actually may be superior, unfortunately, even though, of course, both should work equally well. But that can be a trick sometimes to both have a Firefox-based variant and also have a Chromium-based browser on your computer to help out with some things. So Andreas, what do you say? Am I still good? Or you're already having different conversations? No, it's fine. So yeah, what you can see here, of course, part of this experiment, highly ridiculous that they're saying they're going to prove anything and all they have is like these few $100 cameras. The footage was released very slowly and deliberately released in a way that everyone who would be doubting it had all the more reason to doubt because of all kinds of strange glitches and strange inconsistencies, and also simply them, because I mean, imagine guys, if any of you would go to a place where it's quite difficult to get to, Antarctica, they say, right? Or at least it's quite expensive to go to, and you have a huge community that are very interested and quite invested in what you would bring back. I mean, the first thing I would do is as soon as I get home, throw up all the computers, maybe even buy some cloud storage or space or processing power, whatever is needed, to push out as much of the raw footage as possible. But instead of doing that, from what I had gleaned, they actually had some kind of background arrangement to only slowly release and release it like in a coordinated fashion on the different YouTube channels of both the, let's say, flat earth researchers and globe convicted individuals. Yeah, but overall, very big psyop. And again, to anybody who wants to know the most about it or have an interesting take on it, I can really very much recommend the channel at Nachiketa Fire, which is also featured on my list. And as I see, Andreas just got a call. Bear with me for a second, and I'm gonna pull up the link list on my end as well. Or Andreas is already back. Andreas, you're
Hey,
back.
what's up? Alex is gonna be here in a minute. I just forgot.
Oh yeah, great. Well,
Hey,
have
Alex.
everything happen at the same time. That's always good.
All right, I'll introduce Alex. He's just. Oh, can you take off your shoes?
Yeah,
I forgot.
I see.
Japanese lady's apartment. I forgot. Yeah. Yeah. So we're looking at the. Which one's this one? This is the.
Oh, there's just, I mean, there's so
list.
many links and so much discussion about it, so much friendly or not so friendly conversations on it, so much speculation. I'm not even gonna put my foot down and say it's like this or it's like that. I just put all the links there to anybody who's really interested in, just checking out all the different things people say, then things being debunked left and right. Some people still being convinced that whatever they showed there, because the main contentious point here was whether or not there is a 24-hour sun in the Antarctica. That's the whole thing.
Right.
And for some, it's very important because apparently it's supported by biblical cosmology, and certain people would never accept anything else. Although, as you can probably see on this show as well, there is a document from the early
This is
20th,
Alex. Sorry.
from the early 20th century that basically also gives the possibility for a 24-hour sun in Antarctica on the model of a so-called flat Earth. So yeah, everything's still open. But what's definitely sure, for me at least, is if you look at the participants in this whole thing, and also over the past year, there have been many interviews. Quite a few of them, including this supposed documentary filmmaker you just saw, have either been caught, let's say, saying untruths or just changing the story over time. Or for example, this guy who's on the right side here, who's the documentary film crew maker, he was interviewed and then he was asked, because he claimed, oh, I'm a flat earther, or I'm researching this topic for such a long time. But then even on a live stream, on a conversation, he was saying things which would be very out of character for somebody who is genuinely invested in this topic for years. So there is just, for me, 100 million red flags. And especially, and for me, the main point still, even though it's just a circumstantial thing, the individual who officially financed the whole thing by the name of Will Duffy, with his Agape Fellowship Kingdom Church. The one thing I heard is there's maybe only a dozen people in his sermons. So we can wonder, how real of a church that is. And the most suspicious thing for me is that he basically inherited the church from a quite infamous individual by the name of Bob Enyard. Everyone can look this up, also on Nachiketa's channel, also just with a generic YouTube search, with the whole shadow goth thing and all of that. So just so many very, very strange things convalescing here. Yeah, and here, this is just, I thought it's fun because then I found this video where they sometimes have this like showing village elders, either giving them some Western snacks or, showing them trance music. And it's just very curious how they react to it, especially if they are not familiar with the concept. So here you can see, oh, it's a decoration piece and all of that. And they apparently were not even aware of the globe model, which I find is
Really?
highly
They don't
interesting.
think the world is a globe model. Like,
Well,
nah.
at the
For
very
real?
least, quite a few of them, when presented with it, they are not immediately aware of what this is supposed to be. And then they have to be told
Wow.
this is supposed to be a map and so on. So I just find that an interesting tidbit.
Dang, that's crazy.
But maybe that's what happens if you don't have Disney and Universal Pictures, which are throwing it in your face every time you want to watch a movie. Then apparently it's possible to live in this world and even get quite old and not be aware that this is a model. Although from what I understand, even on all of those globes, if you look properly, somewhere on the lower end or something, there's usually a note which kind of says, be aware this is an artistic and not exact thing. Of course, I mean, which map can really be exact if you're being honest, but still. And also there's a whole thing, I think Rodrigo Ferrari Nunez spoke about this a lot, that basically also the globe model appears to be something that at the very least was marketed by Jesuits or Jesuit affiliated
Of course, yeah.
individuals, which of course does not necessarily make it more credible to me. And what do we have? What do we have here? This is NTD. They always love to put out the NASA stuff. Can you scroll down a
Yeah.
bit just so I see the title?
This was the astronauts on space station speak with NASA administrator.
Oh yeah, it's great because I mean, don't you want to have the job of either the left or the right hand side guys? Right hand side looks completely bored out, and with a plastered up smile. Left hand side, I mean, don't you want to be that woman and glue your hair up like this? I mean, at
Look,
some point it
Miss
just becomes
Frankenstein, yeah.
completely ridiculous. And especially if you compare this type of footage over time, you see so many inconsistencies. They always do the same strange thing where
Dude, really, look at that blur that happens all of a
people
second,
that
too.
don't believe it claim that there
Oh
is
my
some kind
God.
of a string actually. And sometimes you can literally see and you can catch them that they're like, taking a string, or you see they get stuck somewhere. There's something kind of invisible they seem to be holding on, or all these kind of strange phenomenon, which are very curious to say the least.
Oh my gosh. All right.
And I just pulled this up because it's a more recent interview, so people can make up their own minds. And they still, always talk about the same stuff. They never bring any real results. So for me, whatever it is, it's a huge waste of money and attention.
Shout out to Nachiketa doing a good job here with what's his name again?
Yes,
Puppy
this
guy.
is King Nico, who is one of the guys who's really, how should I say, burrowed himself in with the biblical cosmology, which quite a few people are doing. Which on one hand, I'm like, it's very cool if anyone has convictions and so on. But the more you learn also about something like the Bible, I really wonder, or same with the Quran actually, or any other book,
Yeah.
how people can, with such full conviction, know that it is the word of God. And then always saying, oh, do you trust the word of man or the word of God? Well, how do I know 100%, even if it was the word of God originally? that there wasn't some man in between, maybe some printer guy who was printing it, and maybe somewhere along the line someone had their own agenda with it. All of these things kind of get dismissed in a suspension of disbelief, which is completely amazing to me. Almost
And
as
Nachiketa is
amazing
just based.
as
So always gonna
wholesale
happen.
believing whatever NASA puts out. Nachiketa's based for sure.
Let's pull up Tree of Life stuff here. Elon Musk is not getting away with this. He's not. I don't care how many people get offended on his own platform, because All right, let's start with this. Elon Musk supports Andrew Tate's bid to replace Keir Starmer as British Prime Minister. Well, that's interesting. I don't know. Does he really though? I haven't heard him like saying that on his Twitter. Is he doing that?
I mean, there have been these reports, also something where it says supposedly Elon Musk is supporting Andrew Tate's bid for PM and all of that. And I'm just like, if even any of that is correct, it's a huge joke. This is a fun channel because First Post is a quite big channel from India, but they now also have this American outlet.
How does the prime minister work in Britain? Do people vote for the prime minister? I thought the prime minister was mainly like selected by the king or queen, who they wanted to be their prime minister.
Well, people already have pointed out after Andrew Tate said he will become prime minister, there is quite a few problems with that. Not only that he's has an open extradition to the UK to be charged for all kinds of things, but also that apparently in the UK it's different than in the US. Like you cannot just put your name up. You have to be selected by a party and all kinds of things like that.
Yeah.
Although it should be said that anyone who believes that you can just put up your name in America is equally impossible. And that's also why Trump
it's even less delusional. It's even, it's more obvious that it's a controlled thing in Britain. Keir Starmer firmly rejects Musk's criticism. Elon Musk says he's not wrong. I think that's different than saying he would support what he's doing, for instance, with, Alice Vidal is different than anything he's done with Tate. I think he's genuinely supporting governments he thinks that would be more efficient to work with, and saying that America needs Trump allied partners. If your government isn't a Trump allied government, then you'll be looked at as such, and there's not going to be as good of a trade deal for your country. So every country should do their best to be ready to work with America the way it is now, as opposed to trying to cause a nuisance of itself. I mean, that's the imperial philosophy, and it's pretty reasonable in a strange way. It's also less imperialistic than I was looking at it originally as, because if you think about it, trying to allow Greenland to petition to be part of the United States is different than like military conquering. And going into Panama, a place that we already created by blood, sweat, and tears. Actually, like many American soldiers died to create the Panama Canal and to protect the Panama Canal. Then it's a little different saying you want to maintain, that place. Sorry, I was like pushing your face with the camera.
No problem, but
how would
not at me? I don't have anything to contribute.
You might. You never know, bro. He's Austrian. I've learned some Austro-Hungarian economic theory. You never know.
Yeah. So
what about here? We got Andrew and Tristan Tate will run away if you ask them questions.
People vote for something just because you're framing it so nicely. I mean, just think of it even with Austria or many countries in the European Union. In 95 or whenever the election was made for the European Union, they were promising all kinds of things. Prices will go down. And especially, of course, if you don't join the European Union, you will be isolated, you will be dead and all of that. And what was the end result? So, you can always also trick people into voting for something. So that doesn't necessarily, how should I say, make me condone it. But anyways,
right,
we can go on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this is just about Tate, just showing that, he's insane, basically. There's not too much I want to talk about him. I just wanted to point out that if there is any relation between him and Musk, it's just very strange, because this guy, if you have the first level of due diligence, you should know this Gadget guy and another one called Murdered by Crayons is kind of doing the investigation, and they always actually look at the Romanian court documents and then simply show that these guys, when they come on somewhere, they're not willing to confront certain questions. They're running away. They have the psychology of a 13-year-old, which is maybe also why their audience mainly was, young, lost male teenagers. I mean, it's it's a big joke with this guy. What to say?
Here, this is the same.
Oh yeah, and this is
NBC
funny.
interview
This is
with,
funny. You can briefly skip into this to like 2/3. So you see examples of this. This guy is glazing him, even though anyone who, again, who does anyone who does any research by now should be aware that at the very least there are real documents, there are real whistleblowers, certain witnesses had been paid off, and then the Tates were idiotic, I dare to say, enough not to give the bribe which they originally agreed upon. So then the witness turned on them again. I mean, you have how cheap can you be? You're like potentially doing something illegal, then you're offering someone a set amount to pay them off, and then you only give them half or whatever. I mean, big surprise then if if it bites you in the back. But the main thing here I wanted to show, if you go back a little bit, where you see the 3 individuals with the woman. Yeah, here. Supposedly, I'd have to verify this, but the individual on the girl is officially a Trump lawyer. And I'm like, wow, is this the level of lawyers you get for Trump? And because she's basically also glazing Trump. And I'm like, I'm sorry, shouldn't you at least be aware and call up your Republican friends in Romania or whatever and ask if there's anything to the case? But even this type of due diligence was not done. I mean, you had brought up the idea, of course, we don't know what's going on in the background. We don't know what kind of data the guy in the middle has on others. Someone in chat also correctly pointed out his father potentially has, strange CIA connections. He was supposedly, this big level chess player. So I'm not exactly sure yet what strange type of operation this is. I just think it's ridiculous that individuals with such a big platform do not have the resources, are unwilling or unable or otherwise motivated, to glaze somebody like this, especially at a state like it is now, when so much information is easily accessible and public, which at the very least would give you pause or would make you ask critical questions. But none of that is happening here. And even someone who's on retainer by Trump, apparently, as a lawyer, does not ask any relevant questions at all. So I just find that amazing. What should I say? And here, this is of course the whole Elon Musk thing, which I had brought up on a show with the other guys at some point. How ridiculous it is that this guy seems to be lying about his leaderboard status in certain games. And again, even here, I'm wondering now if this is maybe part of a larger program to dismantle Elon Musk as a figure. Because again, if he would have any PR advisors or anyone, he would know you do not upset gamers like this by pretending you're a pro player, and then you put yourself on stream and you don't even realize things which any 8-year-old gamer would easily realize and understand, right? So how can you so blatantly put your incompetence on display while simultaneously claiming you're on top of the world in that particular game? So this is
it's definitely
ridiculous.
Because gamer mentality is like hunter mentality. So he's appealing to the hunter-gatherer mindset by saying he's a good hunter-gatherer. And when they know he's both not a good hunter-gatherer and worse, like not even a hunter-gatherer, he's like no longer part of their men's club, their fraternity, their nature, right? And so all of a sudden he's unnatural. And that's all he's trying to do. Which is why I've been saying it's like I feel bad for in all this Mark Zuckerberg, because Mark Zuckerberg has to be sitting there with his like curled hair and his new T-shirt.
He has to pretend to be a hippie. I'm even.
And he's like, "What the heck?
Like
why aren't you buying my like rhetoric? Why don't you buy my makeover? Like I worked really hard. Like I paid a lot of money to look like a human this time. I have this tan. I surf like and like Elon Musk just like." You buy his? I don't know. I think it's because Elon Musk is like less perfect, and so humans relate to that. He should really just go with that. This less perfection. The less perfection thing is what people liked about Trump. They secretly are like, wow, even though he's less perfect, he's actually perfect. It's like a meta perfection. That's the same thing with Elon Musk. You're like, well, you know what? He's so effed up. There's probably something there that's work. If he's got that much money, there must be something about it that works that I don't understand. and that's that's what
Well,
their
he's
faith is. Their faith
attributed
is a
to
lack of
have to be the
understanding.
front man for that much money. But honestly,
Yeah,
I'm still wondering what is the real psyop behind this, because I cannot imagine even Musk has to be not have a lot of information, or he has no advisors or whatever, but to even allow this to happen, it seems to me it must have been deliberate. I don't know, to deliberately smear his persona or something like this, because if you know anything about gamers or anything, then you know they don't like cheaters. So I don't get it. Also, because technically the nerds and so on would have been his main fans for a long time. They would be most prone to be like, oh, Elon Musk, he's such a genius, mainly because they don't understand about rocket science. Ask Werner von Braun. They don't understand a lot maybe about cars, consider the 100 years ago where we already had at least prototypes of these things. But now, even if you don't have any deep knowledge into any sciences or anything, you can see he's either has a very fragile ego and or he's an absolute cheat. I don't know. It's like
yeah. So if you lie
so
about one
bad.
thing, you probably lie about another, and it just follows
Oh,
down the
that's
way.
right. Exactly. That's the other thing. Yeah. So could it be that just as in this game, you didn't actually achieve anything yourself? Could it be that in all your amazing companies you supposedly run, you also really didn't achieve anything yourself, but you're just a front poster boy? And while we're on that topic, let me check the list.
Poor Asman.
Oh yeah, and he even got into a fight with him. I mean, then Elon
Yeah.
Musk picked a fight with him on Twitter, which is like, and leaked the direct messages and
Leaked his
stuff like
private
this. And
messages. Yeah.
and Elon Musk was dismantled. I mean, again, the only goal here could be how much can I destroy my reputation? Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know,
lost for
man.
words.
I don't know. He's been doing some stuff that would destroy his reputation, but I guess
Yeah,
also
he's
maybe
going
like,
hard in the paint.
maybe he's making some new reputation. I don't know. What do you think's going on? Heil the Great Doge Empire.
Oh yeah, so this I put forth because this guy apparently has been, let's say, calling out Musk for many years, and now more and more people are realizing that this guy is just a front man and an actor, for lack of a better term. So I just wanted to put that video there and show that there's someone who has been onto this for many years, and that anyone who's looking closer can easily realize that this guy is making promises which don't add up. Oh, also, this is great with Linus, because there he's presenting the Hyperloop. And then I think also in this video, you see somebody going back to wherever Elon Musk said the first station for the Hyperloop will be. And now, at least from what you can see, no one knows what's 50 kilometers underground, of course, but from what you can see, it's just a parking lot now, and always making big announcements. It reminds me of whatever NASA, whoever else is announcing big things. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and now we're going to go to Mars. Sure. And then 10 years later, still nothing's happened. A lot of money and hype and attention was generated, but no real advantage for the general population once again.
Say again.
Maybe it's all about symbolism for things in the future, with the correct dates and everything. They do the history we live in.
Well, the only question would be then, for example, with the Hyperloop. I mean, yeah, probably he doesn't have to build it because we already have maglev trains going underground. The only issue is you and I can't access them. It's of course also
Yeah,
possible.
it's probably about money grabbing it. Yeah, I know. But also, aren't these people some kind of chess pieces? Shouldn't we look at the players?
Of course, the only issue is the players usually are not on the chessboard, and they're not so easy to see. But yes, of course.
No, they're on the paper. Yeah, we have to track that.
But I completely agree, of course, and this is how it should be seen, like a chess game, and they are just pieces on the board, and not to get confused and think that they actually themselves as an individual hold any power or really have anything to say, but they are saying what they're supposed to, just as like when Musk went on with Joe Rogan and he was smoking a joint and looking a bit crazy, and then they had the perfect excuse to plummet the stock market or whatever manipulation they wanted to do. And I'm
But
sure
don't
anyone
forget,
who was into it
people are people.
made good bucks.
People are people. Sometimes we have to discern, okay, what is really meant by that, and is it from himself? Sorry, my English is very bad.
Oh, I understand what you mean. It's of course also possible what are accidents, but with some people where there's so much attention and so much money focused on
Yeah,
them,
of course.
the first assumption, of course, would be, let's verify what happened in the background. Let's not say 9/11, what insurance happened, or even the fires, what insurance was lifted off, right? And often, of course, there's at least some people that know how to profit off of that, and it's usually not you and me. So the next few things is a little bit about data centers. Maybe you know something about this, Andreas. I just found it interesting. I mean, this is now, you would say this is a low investment. If now with the Stargate project, they want to invest $500 billion, then what is 20 or billion? God knows. I mean, these figures anyhow, it's just like imaginary numbers, make up whatever you want. It's just a deep state operation.
Well, you can still think of it like $500 billion and then $20 billion. So there's still, a fifth of that investment, or of a quarter of that. There's ways of thinking of the value that Dubai is putting in. I think a lot of that's going to be gaming. There's sports were going to Dubai because they were not doing transgender. So a lot of the world was looking to Dubai for sports. And video games have gone to Dubai, in the Arab Emirates generally. They've been building up a market for controlling and monopolizing video games. So a lot of technology is already headed to Dubai. So the idea of the United States being having a more honest relationship with the Middle East, I guess you could say, like, because let's be real, we've always had a relationship with the Middle East, and it's been part of the idea that you can create a secular Middle East that's, sympathetic, or at least tolerant of a Zionist Israel, because that's a big relationship issue that you have. If you can have both at the same time, then you can have everything. You need a state that allows for, like, Jordan, things like that. So if Dubai can be Western enough that it can be socially open, and it's already like that, where Westerners are going to Dubai, and Dubai is trying to open up and be tolerant to Western values in the way that the West has been tolerant to Middle Eastern values. I mean, there's definite benefit that can be seen there. I don't know. I just noticed because, like, in Floridsdorf, where this dude lives, they're about to wipe out all of the drinkers, because, like, I was walking by and there's these
wipe out. What does that mean?
Well, so there's these two cute hijab girls walking by in these cute, like, white shoes, and they're, like, covered in black sheets, like Pac-Man villains or something. But then you see there's a big corner there where there's people. One has, like, a leg shorter than the other. This lady who's got this, like, boot, and there's other people, and they're, like, having, like, beers and everything. And they're all, like, hanging out and smoking and having beers. And this just seems to me like a very, like, if not Austrian, then very human occurrence. That, like, in this area, that there would be these people that are gathered together, and they just said that they're not going to allow
alcohol anymore.
Yeah. In, like, several weeks, I think it's going to be banned indefinitely.
In the whole, Alexander, in the whole district, or in a special place? Or
no, where the trains are, so the whole place there.
They already did that for one other location, I think. Oh, please say again.
Step by step, maybe a future alcohol for both.
Forbidden.
I mean, from that point of view, isn't already public consumption of alcohol already forbidden in the UK or in certain US states or something? Like somewhere where people run around and put it in plastic bags and stuff like this?
In the bottle,
it's weird, because I've watched some videos of Nazi Germany, and there's all stuff going on there, but they still have, like, beer, like, it's not like they took that away from them in the streets. It's crazy, like, they're worse than the Nazis. What am I supposed to say? I don't know.
How much are we progressed into Sharia already? It's a little bit strange. And
yeah. Which it is what it is, because I think it's not that strange if you think about, like, well, these Sharia people aren't hungover, and they work, and they're on coffee, and you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Like, if you were socially engineering a state to do, like, to be a wage cucked slave state, wouldn't you want people that were falling in line? And that seems like an easier thing than
totally
classical liberals.
Yeah, because the liberals, they get all crazy ideas about the American dream and individualism, and they actually believe it. Can't have too much of nonconformity around in a society that I want to control from a centralized position, right?
Yeah.
But is there really a goal to have one system at all? Isn't the goal to keep us all occupied with many different systems like we are now? That's my theory.
I mean, it's I would say in a way it's both and not, and I'm not sure anymore. Or at the very least, it looks like right now they are obviously working on changing certain systems through immigration, through maybe
Yeah, of
mixing
course.
certain cultural aspects or rules. I mean, generally, I would not be sad if I don't have, crazy drunk people on what's the most popular place. Actually, I'm going to pull this up right now just so we can have a laugh, so you can see what I'm talking about in terms of drunk people.
Right. Yeah, you
Um,
don't need urine all over your city. I get it.
True.
There's valuable alternatives, but still, it's just the idea of like having more options, more freedoms, more choices. Because you actually want like grown up consenting adults to be able to drink, transgender themselves, ride bulls. Like America. Like you want the most possibilities to happen to you when your age of consent hits you. You should be able to fly, swim, anything, jump over buildings, Ubermensch. That should be something that comes to you. And I don't know. It's kind of sad to see more and more people being told, you can't do this, you have to go then, you have to be here by now, and those are your options. That's not a very liberated future. I think it's a big goal is just to like create a West and an East that can transcend the North Arctic at this point. They're looking towards an Arctic trade agreement for the Yggdrasil.
exactly. I just sent a link in private chat just to briefly look at it, because there's always the question, is Vienna now safe or not? Actually, I'd love to
Oh my
hear
God.
what do you think about this, Alexander, as well? Because even here, you have people that are basically saying, oh, it's all nice, if you don't, I don't know, look, if you're not looking for a fight, you'll be safe. At the same time, you have a girl saying, yeah, actually, she's a bit scared. She has a whistle with her. 2 times already, she was being followed by people, and they made strange statements and all of that. So it's almost like parallel worlds existing at the same time, where both certain people feel very safe and they're happy and they say it's no big deal at all, and other people that are saying, oh, I'm afraid to go out at night in these places and the dark alleys. I mean, for me, but also I'm not a female, so maybe it's different. I have never had any negative encounters anywhere, but also I'm generally not hanging out at the hotspots where you would have people that are, I don't know, selling drugs or getting drunk or whatever. So I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
no,
Alexander, what do you think?
I think it's definitely different from a few years before, and I think there are more stupid people who do stupid decisions, go to places where you shouldn't go and do stuff you shouldn't do. We just have more of this.
So, because at the same time, I'm a little bit wondering, because oftentimes people complain and say, "Oh, these are some Mexicans, by the way." People complain and they're saying, "Oh, we get all these immigrants from like Muslim-based countries, and maybe even they're from the backwards countryside or brainwashed or whatever." And I don't get it, or Afghanistan or whatever, because on the one hand, wouldn't those individuals have like super strong, well, rules and laws coming from their own culture, to be respectful, not even to look at women and all of that? And then at the same time, how does it happen that you have attacks happening by certain individuals? Of course, some can be traumatized and all of that, but it's a little bit confusing to me how this works together. And it's always difficult to discern what is the real incidence rate, because the one thing is what gets reported and what gets put into the statistics, and the other
Yeah,
thing, of
that's the
course, is
thing.
what's really happening on the street. And I'm not out there all the time. I don't have cameras all over the place. I'm sure the government could know and could tell us if they wanted to, but of course also here with media operations, you can always gain political advantage on all of that through it. So it's really difficult to understand what's really happening.
Yeah, of course, and I think it's totally true that there are more problems, but it's not as much as it as it's presented. But also I have to say we have cases we hadn't had before. So it's surely a little bit of a difference that has to be acknowledged. And also the cultural differences are basis for conflict. That's in every civilization. So
For sure. No question about that. So let's see. Oh yeah, right. Now next is so this is just a guy that this deal was made with. He's born in What, he's dead? Oh no. All right, this is the guy. Now I know what I'm talking about. So
But
this
he's
was
dead?
this no, because
a month ago.
Yeah.
no,
Remember?
because there was another link where it referred to this investment guy, what I brought up earlier, but we don't have to look
Oh,
at him.
the Arab guy. Sorry.
Hussein Saiwani.
Um,
I just pulled him up just to have a reference, but we can go on
Hussein
to
Zajani, yeah, sorry.
But we can go on to, I don't know, I can't say much about him, but this is just this report about the data center investment and
Well,
this
he's a friend of
oligarch.
Donald Trump, so it can't be all bad. Or maybe he can.
Yeah,
What do you want?
let's wait for a few more links and then everyone can decide for themselves. So the
Okay.
next thing is
So Samir
is
Balaji
this-
is the
yes,
kid who was working in AI, and he was going to be a whistleblower, and then he died in November, and he was a nice boy, allegedly. But I mean, what do you think? I think it was as simple as he was going to show that all of the data was stolen, and so they killed him so that he couldn't release the data with being stolen. I don't know for sure or who would have done that, and don't want to speculate too hard, obviously.
just from
But-
the superficial information I've seen is he was not suicidal at all. He's involved in the case. That's obviously huge. But
Oh,
also
that's
now I'm wondering, now that DeepSeek has been released, does it even matter? Would he really have had to die, you know?
Yeah,
So,
he died for literally, some people used to die for centuries, some people died for decades, some people died for years. Now you're dying for like literally just minutes. Minutes. This is a space-time trench war, my friend, and we're just going for minutes now. The trenches are minutes.
frame by frame. So next thing is the Bible passage and the Trump Tower penthouse.
All right,
So
let's
here,
get into a not New International Version because
KJV.
yeah, so at least do King James, or actually, they have Amped. How about Amped? Amplified. How do you say?
Did they have a Mormon? Did they have a Mormon Bible?
Fun fact: Mormons do use the King James version just because they're just agreeable. But Joseph Smith said to use the German version. Seriously, yeah, because he thought there was some problems with Erasmus translation, which is the one that made Lucifer out of phosphorus. Amplified Bible is kind of good though, right? Because it's this has parentheses to explain what the actual terms could closer be. They have as king over them the angel of the abyss, the bottomless pit. In Hebrew, his name is Abaddon. Abaddon, destruction, they say here, but it should be like father of dawn. And in Greek, he's called the Apollyon, destroyer king.
So number one, of course, this is basically, Jesuit code all over 9/11, 11/9. It's Revelations 9/11, and they talk about Apollyon. Also, Abaddon, if I'm not mistaken now, the very first planet they go to, even in the Stargate movie, now we have the Stargate project, is Abydos, I believe they call it. The first planet in the Stargate movie where they go to is a thing called Abydos. So that's an interesting thing. But mainly what I want to point out here is Trump, to me, again, is basically an effigy for Apollo. As you pointed out, Andreas, why is his skin so orange? It's been too close to the sun. And then I was just like, okay, let's just randomly look up the Trump penthouse because I was looking for this Apollo room. You can't find it so easily on an image search. I believe I've seen pictures of it some years ago, like a whole room dedicated to Apollo, aside from the fact that his whole apartment, this Trump house apartment, is like made in gold, or if not made of gold, right? So just
His
in terms
toilet,
of,
I think.
come again?
His
Yeah.
toilet is made of gold, I think.
Okay,
He has a gold
well,
toilet.
well, Maybe you want to pull up that Wikipedia article for the Trump Tower penthouse. I just want to point out two things there.
True. At one point, there was a cool 360 3D tour you could do of the whole penthouse, but it's been since taken down. We can't find it now. But yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Like, I always thought about it. Like, this guy, you know, sacrificing all this so that he had to go in that old, dusty, crap White House when he had a gold apartment. You know, like he did not need to move into a little old crap White House. That little mansion is a shack.
If you have a
right?
gold house.
It's a way better gold tower, dog. Like, this is what? Yeah, let's look at his ceiling really quick here. Oh, what's up there? Weird. It's like some Apollo stuff going on here. Oh, there's some Apollo stuff over there. There's like 10,000 references to Apollo in this guy's apartment.
So there's two things I want to point out in the article. It's something very simple. If you just go back to the article itself.
Where was this article?
No, go to the image, or you just closed it.
Oh, okay.
Andreas.
Here?
Yes, and now just go, yes, here. So what we want to look at is simply two things. Number one, because basically I was just looking for this Apollo room, which is not referenced here, but still they throw something interesting in your face. So this is the Trump penthouse apartment of Donald Trump at the Trump Tower, primary residence officially for Trump and his family from 1983 until 2019 when he moved to Mar-a-Lago, which anyhow some people claim is like the Southern White House or whatever else, or the Southern presidential house anyways, or location. Florida is its own topic. But here go to history, the second paragraph, and it says, the triplex apartment is located on floors 56, dab smack in the middle, 57. He is currently the 57th president, and 58. Or sorry, he's the 47th. Am I making this up?
Yeah,
47.
He's the
with the
47th.
numbers, I think it's 11, 12, and 13.
It is. Yes, good catch. The other thing that stands, so thank you for correcting that. It's actually not, because it would be 40. So there's a 10 difference here. And the other thing I find interesting is that the Trump organization offices are on the 25th and 26th floor. And 26th is a tetragrammaton or Yotevavhe. So at least for me, you know, I don't believe that these floors are chosen randomly, even though it just corrected me by 10 on the 56 above. So maybe there's something to it, maybe not. I just found it kind of curious.
What does the number 11, the number 12, and the number 13 mean?
What
In
would mean?
symbology, or what kind of symbology? I don't know what they're
Yeah,
looking at.
I mean, just in terms of, in tarot, I could tell you it's either 11 is either justice or strength, 12 is
Okay.
the hanged man, and 13 is death or immortality, depending on whether you're a Gnostic or not.
Maybe then it's this three, because it's a triple parter complex. It's the
Yes.
Holy Trinity. Maybe that's a hint. Don't know.
Oh, I'm pretty sure in their back end, it's definitely related to some like grand occult scheme, even if I'm maybe not smart enough to figure it out. But again, with someone where so much attention.
Dude. Okay, so from the hangman. So from force to the hangman to death, right? That's interesting. Force, hangman, death.
Here someone said 57, 3, 19.
Crazy. Okay. Then we have John Humanity, elite gender inversion.
Oh yeah, I was actually surprised to find this on YouTube, because usually these things are relegated to other platforms. To anyone who's interested in the whole transvestigation topic, well, just take a look at the video. I found it very entertaining, and also it shows more actors and popular figures than you would think of, and gives some baseline references, you know, facial structure, this and that, something to check out. What's definitely sure is that this is some kind of strange, you know, hermaphroditic, Baphomet, whatever thing, not even saying outright if it's good or bad or whatever else. I just, again, find it both offensive in a way and hilarious that you have individuals basically role-playing their whole life. And now, the past 4 years, everyone made a big fuss, oh, transgender sports or this and that. But actually, it may well be that such individuals have been running around on center stage for many decades, and no one raised an eyebrow because most people simply were not hip to the idea. So, and of course, the famous idea by Dave Chappelle, the famous interview where he's claiming at least that he was kind of pushed
Oh yeah,
into playing as a woman, many
and
cases
he
like
and
this.
he had a dress in one movie. He had a dress in one movie in Robin Hood, Man with Tights.
What year is this? Do you
Technically, he
know?
was in a woman's dress.
Do you know which year?
Mel Brooks movie.
They got him. They got him.
Do you know in what year that was, Alexander?
Robin Hood, Man in Tights.
1993.
And there is a scene where he was in the dress where they had in the Middle Ages, where they infiltrated. I know this scene where they infiltrated the arrow contest. There he is.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, of course, an even more amazing
Technically, it's a woman's dress.
Yeah, of course. No, it's great. It's crazy, or it's great because 15 years later, you can construct a whole conspiracy around him and he can complain about it, when in actuality, already 15 years earlier, he's already been part of the club. And of course,
Yeah. His,
I mean,
okay.
God.
He's from DC, right?
And he's wearing horns. He's basically got the,
wearing horns
Japanese
like
style
Obama.
horn.
Looks just like Obama that one night.
That's right.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes.
So then the lead-in version of gender, and then I just wanted to say King Follett Discourse, if you're into Mormonism, if you're into that weird thing, you know what I mean? You look up in it, he says he's been reading the Bible, he's got the Old Testament, Latin, German, and Greek, and he's been reading the German and finds it to be the most correct. And this is because of the Erasmus translation. Trans-Tartarian, base, bro. Thank you, base Kothar. Hey, that's funny. I was going to say base even before I knew you were base, but of course you had to be base. Erasmus, English, Erasmus of Rotterdam was a Dutch Christian humanist Catholic priest who translated. And so this dude screwed up the Bible, and the Germans had a better version of it. And so the British had like a weird idea about Satan that they eventually brought with Lutheranism back to Germany through the British Sophia Naturalization Act. And that was not present in the German Bible at that time. So when he was reading the German version, he's like, oh, this is way less messed up than these other versions, which have been forced to pair with each other. Okay. So then Tree of Life, let's go down a little bit further to W-band biosensors, Y-band, world band. What's W-band, V-band?
Yeah, so wireless body area network.
Body
of
area
course,
network.
This is all a complete conspiracy theory. We don't believe any of it, of course. It's purely for educational purposes and satirical content. Although there is a Wikipedia article about it, but no, we all know Wikipedia is fake. Or damn, Andreas, now I'm not sure what to say anymore to shill properly.
No, we're good. Look, band devices may be embedded inside a body as implants or pills.
Maybe.
No, this is we're past that. No, we're cool now. We can just say it. Okay, guys, never mind. We were just messing with you. It was a gaslight. They totally exist. A body area network, also referred to as a wireless body area network, a body sensor network, or a medical body area network. M-band is a wireless network of wearable computer devices. Band devices may be embedded inside the body as implants or pills, may be surface mounted on the body in a fixed position, or may be accompanied by devices such as Cartman's enema from space, anal probes, which humans carry in different positions, such as in closed pockets by hand or various bags. Devices are becoming smaller, especially in the body area network. Okay, So then let's go to the first one here, which is a luckily Odyssey video. Good job, Odyssey. We love you.
Yeah, so I believe even maybe scroll down to the comments briefly.
Okay.
Just I want to
Sarah, you
see
mean?
what.
This one doesn't have
Okay,
any
no, that's
comments.
okay. So basically, just pointing out there is a guy by the name of Todd who was doing work on this, and he basically, I think he wants to sue them, as it says here, over certain technologies. Generally, I mean, I've listened to Sarah Westall, the woman on the left, quite a few years ago, and actually she's the one who initially brought me to the Tartarian topic because she interviewed Sylvie Ivanova, who back then just talked about carbon dating and certain roads not matching up and so on. So from all I can tell, she's, pretty legit in terms of independent journalist, and she's still going on. She's also shadow banned everywhere. She had a quite large following, I guess, also on YouTube, but got banned off of it, and also some other places. And while she may not be hip in depth to all kinds of conspiracies and so on, from everything I could see from her so far, she seems to be genuine and honest in her inquiry, which is, more than you can ask from most people that are, beyond a certain threshold of popularity. So just wanted to point this out. We can go through because these are all related. So this is the project by this Todd guy where he's talking about what he's doing and how he wants to sue them, or how he wants to learn more about this technology through legal action as well. And of course, there's the huge contention to what extent now these cellular networks are good or not. I believe there's this book called Invisible Rainbow and some other books even from years back that are claiming that anytime the cellular network or electrical grid is upgraded, there are all kinds of strange civilization level and health-based effects that may or may not occur, accelerated by that or whatever else. Generally, the idea here and what we're going to get into in the next few links is simply that this whole electromagnetism is something that is kind of, how should I say, in the materialistic science and mainstream, they often pretend like it doesn't even exist or it doesn't affect you at all, even though it is well known by now that the body and the heart and the brain are generating electrical fields. The human body is an electric system as well. So anyone who believes that this would have no effect whatsoever under any circumstance, let me just say I'd consider that a stretch. But both, of course, as there are potential threats, there are also all kinds of things you can do in terms of supplements, in terms of clothing and all of that, that could protect you to some extent in terms of stones. As I've shown, the noble shungite, for example, seems to be very effective in reducing or dampening radiation, or however that happens exactly, this type of EMF field radiation. And yeah, I think even you, Andreas, can confirm that there is something to putting your phone on airplane mode or turning off your devices at night and all of that. I mean, at the very least, if you don't need it, and if you don't have a 24/7 server for Minecraft or whatever running in your room, it may actually be good to turn off as much as possible. At the same time, I wouldn't want anyone to go crazy over it, because the most important thing still is our psychology. And if you're worried about it all the time, you're just going to get sick because you're worried. But still, to have some type of awareness of it, I think is great. Some people even like to use special paint to like block out their living rooms completely. If you can afford it, of course, to have a separate living room without any devices or electricity, at least it's, I guess, worth an experiment, and everyone can see how they feel.
You know what I would like to have? A device like goggles where I can see this kind of MF fields.
Well, the Neuralink will let you see that stuff.
Yeah, but I don't.
I'm sure the
my brain around about
Neuralink.
That was the punchline, yeah. But yeah. All right. Also, Sabrina Synergy.
Yes. So basically, she's the whistleblower that brought out a lot of this information starting like 2 years ago. She's still going on, which I think is good. As with so many individuals that are whistleblowers and actually have some background knowledge, it may take some time to listen to a bit. I think I chose 1 or 2 videos that are somewhat understandable, let's say, also for someone who has not been into this topic before. Give it half an hour or an hour to get into it and understand it more. But from everything I could understand, I think I brought this up one show quite some time ago, she's onto something at least. And the main thing she just says is that we have I heard that aura now is a popular term now for youth, where they say, "Oh, you got aura," like a positive thing. So maybe the awareness of this idea is coming back, not as some esoteric concept, but again as the body's own energy field. And she's basically claiming that all type of government agencies are very, very hip to that idea, and they are also potentially using that as an attack vector against certain individuals or more individuals, and just that it would serve us well to again integrate this understanding of also having a biofield into our own understanding and concept of health, and not to pretend that it doesn't exist, while at the same time, because so many people think it has no effect, you can have some government agencies playing around with frequencies and all of that, and you don't even know what's going on. And we know, I think this was even the first Iraq war or whatever, or Gulf War in the 90s, voice to skull technology and all of that. And now just imagine a few decades have passed. We also don't know what type of ancient technologies there may be. So I would definitely recommend everyone to at least take a look at that type of information and see if it resonates with you or not. There's a document.
Just really quickly, Kalani asked about the Colburn text. I would just say you should check out the Colburn text on archive.org. You can grab a book about, what is it, 800 pages? Yeah, 900 pages long. So yeah, check out the Colburn text. We'll talk about that at some point. Maybe not right this second though. But
Yeah, so actually, I think
body for safety.
I think this is a good video, I think, for starters, where Sabrina is laying out all the technologies that exist and the development of them, and just trying to make the general public understand, yeah, that there's something to this. It goes quite deep, and also certain aspects may be quite nefarious, but you know, whatever really happens, it's worth looking at this and considering the real capacities there are right now to access what she calls the human biosensors, also through all different types of technologies.
It's weird how she's decided to film her screen instead of like using a screen capture software. It's like it's definitely a look.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, and then Synergy Tech PDF. You can also download the PDF from her page right here. Like, get the actual thing to look at yourself, so you don't have to, look at it from the angle. Here's all the same data she goes over, so you can look at it while she talks, see it properly. And then biosensors in their ear pods for your safety.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about this yet. Maybe you know about this. Is this correct? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there are some advanced sensors in the AirPods. And then, I mean, if this is true, they probably read your brain waves and send it back to Apple to see, if you will be minority reported or not, or whatever.
Apple invents biosensors. Show us the page. Where is it here? Next generation biosignals electrical activity from a user's brain. So it can pick up active electrodes 208, 202, 208B, 208A, 208D, C, E, F, etc. all around here. See biosignals. And then each reference electrode should pick up maybe like.
And that's why they keep droning on about Neuralink, because anyone who has these AirPods basically already is wired in, at least in terms of being able to read their information, probably. Of course, this is all purely speculative, and I'm sure Apple would never send just a bit of data without your explicit and most well understood consent. Yeah, go figure. Check the first price for the first Apple, and at least they have some occultic background.
I say use Bose, I guess. I don't know, or just cheap Chinese stuff. But I mean, theoretically, if you had access to this stuff, if it was open source, like how great would this be? Now you have earplugs that pick up on biosensing. I don't know how well this works either, because that's another question I'd have to ask. Because in the old days, I mean, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you'd have all these things in a helmet around your head.
Believe it or not,
you get that many signals from your ears. Like,
there was a project called OpenBC. A project called OpenBCI. I became first aware of in 2010 or 11 at the Chaos Communication Conference in Berlin, and there was this fun guy who had such a helmet, And even back then, it was super cool. You could see the brainwave patterns nicely, you know, on the screen and everything. And he basically, for some time at least, was selling a self-assembly kit where you could then have built such a helmet for yourself, and you know, just have it locally, run with open source. And I'd be all for that. Number one, if it's safe enough that it's not disrupting your brainwave, whatever, even more
Yeah.
than all the electronics you already have. And secondly, if I know that
Whoa,
the
they're
data is
expensive
not
now.
randomly being sent off to somewhere. I'm pretty sure these self-made kits were only a few $100. And also here I have to wonder how much more
Yeah, why are they
precise.
36? Why are they 3,600 now?
What? Yeah.
3,600.
And I'm
This was like
wondering,
$200.
yeah,
200 bucks, and you could 3D print the plastic parts yourself.
yeah, and without knowing it, but I'm kind of suspecting that the capacities of this won't even be much greater. Oh, this is the OpenBCI actually. Okay,
Yeah, this is
interesting.
OpenBCI. I was
Uh-huh.
wondering why their price is so high now, though. Because
Yeah,
like
because
during
everyone
the
should keep hoping and investing in Neuralink, I guess,
oh
whatever
my
that
god, bro.
front
This was
operation is.
this was like $200 when I got in
Exactly,
the
yeah.
Kickstarter. I have one. Maybe I should sell it because I'm not using it. Sign it. Okay. How about Booby effin' Kennedy, Big Pharma, ugly Trojan horse?
Yeah, so of course, everyone kindly, if you're interested, check out on Xirtus channel the interview with Dr. Shiva. I think it was very interesting to get an alternative view. And here what you see, I don't know how many years ago this was, but RFK, who is now heralded as the champion for, you know, Children's Health Alliance, Health Defense, and lawyer, and being against, I guess, the, you know, mandatory inoculations and all of that, or warning against it. Here you see a video of him. I'll just recount it. He says, yes, I've been asked by, of all people, Louis Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, for my stance on inoculations. And there he's like, I will tell you, for many years, you know, I have never been anti-inoculations. I have 6 children. They are all perfectly inoculated and all of that. And I'm like, oh, great. You really want to tell me, if you are aware and a power player on that level, you have Kennedy in your name, then you would not know of potential issues or whatever. And then only whenever it's convenient in terms of mainstream timeline, you suddenly become the big hero. I don't believe it. And Dr. Shiva doesn't
Yeah.
believe it
Well,
either.
He got rid of Red Dye number 4. That was a good start. I'll give him. I'll keep treating him more like a Curb Your Enthusiasm character with his wife Cheryl, and hoping for the best, because he's not a god. He's not the Antichrist. He's a Kennedy. You know, that's basically all you can really expect from him. And like, hey, America needs to get rid of Red Dye number 4, and that's an admirable start. And as long as they don't make people take the measles shot, then people are allowed to have religious beliefs that the measles shot is good for them all they want. You know, like, I don't know. I mean, we're not. I think the point is that at the time that this was happening, it was the radical left that were anti-vax. It was in the 90s, mostly Hollywood moms, celebrities that were pushing the idea that vax has caused, you know, they were pushing this, you know, the myth, right, of the autism myth, right? So it was the left that were doing that. And then all of a sudden with COVID, the conservatives kind of somehow latched on with Q and with, you know, the conspiracy movement. It latched on to the right wing, which is also the same right wing that Trump was promoting the vaccine. So it's never been, you know, the left or the right versus vaccine. It's always been the establishment versus the anti-vaccine people, you know. And I don't know if they're ever going to be able to get away with that. The last major thing that happened that I saw with Bobby was the RFK Jr. confirmation hearings. I mean, if you saw these, there was Bernie, etc. Bernie was like, "Are you going to promise not to take money from these lawsuits you're doing against vaccinologists and pharmaceutical companies? You know, because you're going to like basically destroy these fine men working at pharmaceutical companies." And then RFK is
You
like,
know
you
how
know,
it
bro,
is.
like not only will I, but like that's
Out of
messed up.
one pocket into another pocket. You know,
Right, because
one
he's like,
head,
hey, Bernie, you took
two
1.5
hands.
million from the vaccine pharmaceutical companies. What are you talking about, Bernie? And Bernie's like, I took money from the, you know, the workers. The workers gave me money, which I think is kind of worse if you think about it. Like if you took like $9 at a time from a dude who needed that $9, it's actually worse, you know? Like from a family that needed that $9, like from a single mom that needed that $9. Like Bernie, you know, you're not making yourself look any better. But he also took money from the pharmaceutical companies. There's like lots of evidence. Yo, African philosophy. How's it going, Ibiza? Good to have
Oh,
you.
it is Ibiza. All I have to
I
say,
think so.
everyone. I also think so. I think that's his channel. In any case, everyone, you know, check out Africast on Xirtus. That's honestly one of my favorite podcasts on the Xirtus network.
I like this one. You know, it's got all those like philosophy songs. All right. Anyway, Bernie Sanders takes a bunch of money. RFK says he's going to stop taking money. He already has. Look what he has, though. He has Cheryl. See over here in the far right there? That girl, that blonde girl, Cheryl from Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Like he's married to Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I heard of
Come
that,
on.
but luckily I don't know the exact reference.
Bro, so it's so important, like, to the whole thing because Larry David wrote Seinfeld, and that's New York. And clearly, if you're living in Trump, what do you think Trump was watching in the 90s? Let's be honest. Do you think he was watching Friends? No, he was watching Seinfeld, and he loved Curb Your Enthusiasm. You could just tell, even though this billionaire here, Larry David's able to play the liberals to make himself seem like a liberal. Let's be real. He's a conservative New York Jew who likes to hold on to the conservative values to an extent of the neoclassical liberal, right? He's a neoclassical liberal, but he's trying to conserve the neoclassical liberal. And in the show, he's married to Cheryl Hines, the actual wife of Bobby Kennedy, RFK Jr. That's the actual wife, right? Now,
Oh
you
my
might say,
God.
okay, whatever, like this isn't that big of a deal. But then last year, there was a writer's strike in Hollywood. And during the writer's strike, there was no television coming out of America. It was crazy. I mean, in a time when basically we had the perfect climate for the CIA or propagandists to, inject little things, because we're not allowed to talk about our politicians directly necessarily, because you have to give airtime to each one or whatever. You had Saturday Night Live doing their thing near the very end of it. But for a full year there was a writer's strike for television shows. Except Curb Your Enthusiasm, the show doesn't have writers. The actors actually improvise. So they were able to make this show even though the writer's strike was going on. So they had a far bigger impact than any other show. In fact, most other shows couldn't even exist at that time because of the writer's strike. But because they're all improvised.
What year
based on
writer's strike?
What?
What year was this writer's strike you're talking about?
2023, 2024, 2023.
So the recent one. All right.
Yeah, the recent one. Yeah. So this was the most recent show that came out that talked about what was going to happen in America. And the whole show, the whole season was about Larry is arrested and goes to court for handing a water bottle to a lady who's at a voting line. I mean, she's this fat old lady and she's thirsty and she's going to go vote in Georgia, because he's visiting his friend's mom, and he gives her a water bottle. And then they say that's interfering with the election. Like straight up, the
Must be
season's
some kind
about
of coded messaging.
Yeah, what the season's about whether or not Larry David interfered with the election, and it's on
It's about
trial.
whether
It's about a
whether or
trial
not
about what
fluoride
he
in
did.
the water is interfering with the sovereignty of the American individualism dream.
There's a lot. I swear, there's a lot, and then you have to remember when this was happening. Also, all of the things that Trump was saying, because Trump was waiting for so long to be running for president, like Seinfeld, Trump. There was this whole thing.
The Fiji water?
He was like,
Oh yeah, Fiji water was a thing he brought up. That's true. I forgot why.
Anybody ever tried? Seriously, the news source made out of paper, right?
his whole shtick at that time was so Seinfeld. It was like a Seinfeld TV show.
It disintegrates as you drink it. If you have a nice tie like this tie, this would have no chance.
Which is what happened at the beginning before the nothing happened, the great nothingness, right? So even the idea of Seinfeld worshiping the nothingness, I mean, it's just there's like levels of Antichrist that are pretty impressive if you think about it. I like it. You know, I'm impressed. I'm not upset. What about this one?
So this is an example I had brought up many times before. Now I will not repeat it. Dr. Stefan Lanka, I think, is also one of the few genuine doctors that has some popularity, at least in Germany, not in any mainstream or anything like that. But already many years ago, he won a lawsuit related to a measles case. I'm not going to get into details now. I still don't know to what extent the guidelines have changed. But basically what he did, I mean, the title here says it all, is that he redid the original virology experiment, where basically he's showing that according to the way the experiment is set up, since it has no control group, you basically can more or less at will define something as dangerous for the human body or as quote unquote a virus. Definitely recommended everyone who has not looked into this yet. Check out his name, check out his stuff on Odyssey. You will hopefully still find some interviews. You may also still be able to find this experiment. And also on my website, the link is below in the show notes. You can find an article through the search called The Healthy Reset, where I'm also putting some links there and some basic explanations in terms of what he did and what's going on. Okay, we're through with that. Yeah, through the rest, we can go a bit more quicker. There's only a few things I want to point out. So number one, Romania. I'm not sure if you had heard about this yet. It's a little bit interesting. So apparently there was an election recently in Romania, and the Romanian Constitutional Court claims that this Călin Georgescu, who has a background in some UN-based institutions, but still was like a very unlikely candidate, maybe also kind of Trump-esque, I can't say for sure. According to Divergent, which is an interesting YouTube channel, he says that basically this guy just wants, good healthcare, good food, and so on for the Romanians. The Constitutional Court declared the elections invalid, but then you had basically, as you can see here, months of peaceful protests by Romanians, basically saying, yeah, actually we take this democracy role play kind of seriously, and apparently they actually voted for that guy. I haven't vetted him. I don't know all the background details. I think by now he's been on InfoWars at least, but for overall media coverage or mainstream media in Austria, I would have no clue about this even happening. So it's certainly very selective in terms of who is even reporting this, because it should be a big thing that basically people are demonstrating for their elections to be accepted. Yeah, hard to say. I already pulled him up, the next link. Oh, on InfoWars, yeah.
Well,
Interview
okay.
cu un conspirationista american. That's great. Interview with American conspiracy. Yeah. Yeah, so he was executive director of the United Nations International Institute for Sustainable Development, which generally would be the biggest red flag ever. But yeah, I haven't met the guy. I really can't say. But I find it interesting, again, that it's not really being reported, at least in the West.
So what are you saying? That this guy won, but they don't really let him win?
Exactly. The current powers that be in Romania are doing everything to block him, but he seems to have, at the very least, popular support. And apparently, according to what he's saying and claiming, may actually be something positive for the country. I'm not vouching for him because I don't live there. I don't know the guy, but it's something interesting to look into. Yeah, and that's his party, I believe. But that's good, meaning gold in Romanian. Like AU, the symbol for gold, and again we have the gold Apollo reference potentially. I really can't say. I really don't know, but something interesting, European to check out.
Is Romania part of the European Union?
Yes, by now, yes.
Okay.
And I believe
so,
they may even already, by now, I think they're also in the Schengen area, because for some point, the European Union, of course, said, oh, look, we're going to let you in, but free travel, you're going to have to wait a few years, because they claimed they were afraid of so many immigrants, you know, stealing away jobs or whatever else. But I don't know what the
dude,
real story is.
Magyarophobia is the fear of Hungarians.
Magyarophobia. Yeah. Because the Magyars are the Hungarians, yes.
I mean, there needed to be a word for it. Okay. And then
So here we don't have to go through everything. Just maybe, yeah, here the first 2 links are enough.
shout out to Ezra Pound. I'm gonna see here. Okay, let's see what we got.
So this is the main thing I want to point out in this old world section. And if we don't manage to discuss everything in detail, again, everyone in the comments, there's a link to my website where all the links are, which we are opening up today, and maybe even some more. So here, all I want to point out is this Sergei Glaziev. On the next link, you can briefly open the wiki, the next tab, just to see who this guy is. So he's not just anybody. Yeah, he Russian politician and economist. He even ran at some point as presidential candidate, and even got a few percent, which of course, if you're up against Putin, means you must have at least some popularity and ground support to be able to pull that off. Apparently, here, as you can see, he even was an advisor to the president of Russia. So even then officially accepted by the system in Russia or whatever else. Let's see. I mean, so basically a high profile individual. That's the main thing I want to point out. And now you can go back to the interview. And here you can see chronology, one of the pillars of the ideology of Russia's third path. And guess what they're talking about? They're talking about Anatoly Fomenko's new chronology. And whilst in the West, the official channel History, Science, or Fiction has less than 1,000 subscribers. Here you can even see it. This is the channel. Look, oh, and here it only has 100 views. But go scroll down, please, and in the comments, or in not the comments, the description, sorry. Open it up and go to the Russian source. And I mean, okay, it's still not as massive as I maybe would like it, but here at least you see it has 86 or 90K views. So I just find it interesting
right,
that while in the West, Fomenko's new chronology is completely blocked out and just wholesale being pretended is all made up, in Russia, even a high-level presidential advisor is openly discussing it in a high-level setting, and he's, you know, modern terms would say basically glazing Fomenko, I think for good reason, and just says, looks what this guy did, he's so amazing, and it's so important to understand this, all of that. And in the West, I'm not even saying it's 100% correct or not. I just find it so hilarious and kind of retarded. This
the West is hiding from this, and
of
the East
information.
are like teaching their kids in school about this, and it's taken for granted
Exactly.
now. Yeah, it's impressive to have a conversation with someone who has a college degree and then to tell them about Tartaria, and they're like, "Wait, what?" You know, I mean, especially because it's different when it's not just abstract. When it's like you say, "Well, this is what they're teaching in Russia right now," then they're like, "Okay, now I have to look into it a bit more." Oh, look at these guys. Nuclear. Paulus Kaufman. What's this?
Yeah, here, honestly, because it's a few weeks ago that I put this all together, I don't remember anymore where I put this
Talked
up.
about the Marcion Christians, maybe, and the new God. The new, like, Marcionites believed in erasing anything but the New Testament, and that the God that happened before Jesus was a dick, and that they should just forget about him, basically, and that there's a new God now. And that was basically why the Christians created the canon, was because the Marcions were so popular, running around telling people that this was the new age of happy Jesus, happy-go-lucky Jesus Christ. Right? They liked Paul, and they're just like, sweet, no more Jewish law, just all forgiveness all the time. Like, pretty much the 60s. Got kind of wild. All right, we'll check that out. And then also here's Professor Hamamoto.
Yeah, I have to say, I wrote him. Unfortunately, he didn't get back to me. Maybe the email landed in the junk or whatever, I can't say. But still, I'd love for him to interview with you at some point, because I think he has quite many interesting takes. And by virtue of his life path, how should I say, also appears to be a nonconformist, which is always great. So yeah,
Right.
always interesting to watch. Let's see, there's a few more things now about, okay, well, one thing that we want to look at is,
Oh yeah, he's talking about Ezra Pound. I just should say Ezra
Right.
Pound's very interesting because, you know, he was an American from Ohio who became a poet and ended up announcing Italian fascist radio propaganda and put in an insane asylum on the East Coast in DC, I think, actually. And it was like what, T.S. Eliot or something who had to get him eventually out. I don't remember how that worked out, if he ended up like they screwed up his life forever. But he was really into Benito Mussolini's rhetoric, and he was pretty good at poetry. I love Ezra Pound's poetry. I think he's pretty good. He's a very surreal, existential. This is what you feel like the park and the grass. You know, the like ashes in the cigarette holder of the 1979 Ford Torino, like that kind of, you know, descriptive existential poetry and simple. Here's Jean Joseph Marie Amiot. Go for it. You can pronounce it. I trust you.
Jean-Joseph Marie Amiot. And here the whole point being, I just picked this up randomly on a chat. Always the question, how old are these supposedly thousands-year-old documents really? And again, it seems this document was introduced to the West by some kind of missionary, not to say Jesuit. So also something to look at more closely as to whether this really is a thousands-year-old originally Chinese script, or whether it was much more recently created or adapted. Unknown, something to look at. I just find it interesting because Sun Tzu's Art of War is one of these, you know, main books where everyone says, oh, for sure, it's so old and that's why China is such a great empire or whatever. But the relationships here may actually be somewhat different than what we are led to believe. Although this looks really interesting, almost like a...
But is this the original or a copy of the time?
I'm not sure what they claim. They probably claim that this was the first time someone brought it to the West, and of course it existed for thousands of years before, officially. But if it's really thousands of years or hundreds or 10 years, I can't say. I just found it interesting, something to look at.
Jesuit?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you know, he's looking at the art of war, but from the perspective of a European in the 18th century. So that's going to affect it no matter what. It definitely looks more French because of it. Al-Biruni.
Yeah, so this I just also picked up randomly. Apparently, this guy was also into cosmology. Someone to look at. Even just now I'm seeing there's apparently a Soviet postage stamp. That's, of course, an interesting link potentially if the Soviets cared about him at all. Yeah, something to look into in terms of cosmology. I haven't deeply looked into it yet. I just wanted to drop the reference.
Yeah, comparative religion, Iranian, very tolerant society that tolerated intolerance right into itself and had itself destroyed. Shout out to Iran. So also Al-Khwarizmi, right, which is from the same place.
Yes, I believe he's like related to this idea of algorithms and stuff like that. Again, I just put the link there. I'll have to look into it more. But, you know, these strange, supposedly Arabic poet sages that we may have inherited quite a few things from.
The Oasis region, Lake of Khwarazm. Hard to say for me to practice that more.
I'm almost like, isn't this like corazon? Isn't that like heart or something?
Feels like it has to be related, but you never know. And then descendants of Confederates who fled to Brazil. Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, so this is just something fun to watch. Also, the next video simply relates to, because of course we're investigating when were languages created, and at the very least now, if we have someone still living in the US and they say their grand or great grandparents emigrated in 1865 and already spoke a variant of German, of which there are quite a few cases, at least then we can say, okay, German in some form already existed at least in 1860 or 1850 or whatever else. Just to have some type of a grasp on history, or at least going 100 years back. This, I think the next video is a bit more fun, where you see them actually visiting. Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you actually have them talk. It's fun, of course, to listen to as a German native speaker, to listen to the difference in the way they are talking, but they can be understood for sure. And they have an ad
Yeah,
for
it's crazy
Timo. Oh my
how
God.
not long ago people spoke German all over the United States all the time, but now Amish people still do. So, but is he in Texas or where did he go?
I honestly, I don't know. I have to
Because I
check in
know,
the
like in
description.
Texas, there was German speaking in Texas, and but there is German speaking still in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania Dutch still speak a German. I mean, that's the whole deal with the Amish. A 1942 map of the New World Order, published in Philadelphia. Speaking of which, in 42, an outline. Let's see here. Greenland, bruh. There she is. We were gonna get her for sure. We all knew it was coming.
Yeah,
Come
so
on.
I just basically pulled it up because I was like, oh, maybe that's finally what's being implemented now, with BRICS and NAFTA, or however then you want to call it, right?
Mm-hmm. Could be. Are we looking at India and Europe being one thing? I don't think that's going to happen. India is probably going to be part of BRICS. Europe's probably going to be more of an Atlanticist power. That might be an argument to be had.
And Turkey goes to China, am I get it right?
I mean, well, to Eurasia, which is going to be BRICS,
Yeah.
includes Russia. It's Tartaria. There's like East and West Tartaria, right? East Tartaria flag. You have to have the actually, that picture would have been fine. You got the West and the East. You have to have the colonial powers and the naval powers. The United States was going to have this part of Europe. Okay.
Germany has a fat black border around it, and Italy.
We're going to build a wall.
Exactly.
And look, Chechens are still free. That's nice. Czechs and the Chechens can hang out. Union of the French Africa. Oh, well. Who's going to be in charge of the African Republic? France or not? Make yourself known. Yeah, I mean, this is obviously before they realized it'd be easier just to have the European Union, and China wasn't going to play a game. I don't know, India and China, that's a whole interesting argument. Let them fight that out. United States of South America, huh? It could happen, but Bolivia doesn't seem like it'd be into it. Venezuela would have to be conquered. Guyana is still part of France and free. Peru is some sort of a Japanese colony.
Well, where there is a will and a lot of funding and military support, there's usually also a way in geopolitics. Right?
True. But Japan needs Peru. That would really screw them up. That'd be a bummer.
Okay, then let's see. These are just interesting videos. I can't say much about it, but interesting, a study on the whole gargoyle theme.
Mhm.
I haven't looked into this deeply yet, but it's definitely a recurring thing on all the old world buildings. Something to look at.
Well, allegedly, at one point, they would take features of the most interesting creatures of each one of their kingdoms and make an imperial flag that made a creature that had all the features of it, several of the different lands, animals. So a singular magical animal that represented their people. And that could be something for sure. It could also be that these were just freaking real. Come on, why not? I mean, really, like these giant freakish birds that were attacking people. We have plenty of stories of that
Oh
recently
yeah,
enough.
giant birds. Yeah, I wouldn't bet against it. What can I say?
Yeah. And then Black Sheep Researcher. Oh yeah, good old
Yeah,
Black
he
Sheep.
always brings cool stuff. I still have to watch this one as well, but I just wanted to point it out because it's about underground. And
Yeah, I just saw Underground City has a wiki page now that's pretty big. It seems like it's been the article possibly contains original research from November 2013 and needs citation review since 2012. But I mean, it's a lot bigger than it used to be before, at least in the last year. There's like a bigger Underground City wiki page than ever before. And it talks about underground cities in Japan and Iran and
yeah,
Turkey.
time for Vice to
and
send you an apology, you know.
it's pretty good. Almost Lost History, decoding the secrets of more than 10,000 Japanese veterans in the Fourth Field Army, the Chinese People's
Yes.
Liberation Army.
This was sent to me by David Beebe, who's, I believe, he may be Chinese. So something I have to look into properly. But yeah, also about this convoluted history between Japan and China. But I cannot recount that story. It's not fresh enough on my mind right now.
Interesting, though.
And then, yeah, brief section now, where maybe Alexander can also say some things, just briefly about East Turia, and then we're pretty much through.
Okay.
Well, I don't know anything about this.
No, not about China, but the next
East-
section.
Arteria.
East Turia is just a word for Austria.
East
so-
Tarreich. Tartarian Reich.
In this case, I kind of include Germany in it as well. The main thing I
this
want
video has been removed.
What?
The one
Already?
you suggested has been removed for violating
great.
YouTube's guidelines,
Yeah,
bro.
I'm sure, and I'll tell you why. Please go back to the title, just so I can Oh, this one is still there. Which one is this? Please scroll down.
This one is Donald Trump's
Trau kein Promi.
Hitler Gruß.
Yeah,
Hold
of
on,
course, it's
let's
Trau
go
kein
to East
Promi.
Korea.
So the first one, US Eckhard Schmitz. Yes. So why is it banned? Basically, what he's showing in that video, I can only recount it. I hope it will be re-uploaded somewhere on Odyssey or wherever. Because Trau keinen Promi basically is burning through his YouTube channels on the regular. But at least look at view count or whatever, because as we know, through relevance, you're never going to find it ever. Change the filters.
I recently told him he's one of the most important guys about these topics. Also with the Trump thing, I know he makes good stuff.
Exactly. He's taken a close look. So the main thing, I'll just recount it briefly. You can just look up the name. So this Eckhard Schmitz is basically apparently the handler, or however you want to call it, for a guy very popular in Germany called Farid Bang, who is kind of like Drake or whatever, like I never listened to it, but I have no clue, but very popular like Drake, and basically just showing, how should I say, there may be some very, usual trafficking, trauma bonding, and so on thing, because basically one of those guys, I think Eckhard Schmitz, went to the US at the age of 19.
Oh, wait. Isn't Eckhard Schmitz the dude we were talking about the other night? Who has who got
No,
different one. Okay.
I was talking to you about Akif Perinci, who made an interview with Trau kein Promi.
Okay. I was thinking of the dude who bought a woman from the guy's father who changed his name.
I don't know right now.
Somebody threw himself in front of the trains when the girl got out of the apartment.
No, not changed. Priklobil. The father from Krampus, changed the name because of this incident and something. Priklobil was not the father of Krampus. You know what I mean.
The father of the girl who was sold.
The father of Krampus lives in my complex apartment.
Now that would be an interview, but we don't want to.
Yeah, he will not. He changed his name and doesn't want to do anything to do with this.
We could light it really in a silhouette, like a 1980s television. Like next time on 60 Minutes.
But why is this important? So this interview this still exists about Trump, but the thing which doesn't exist anymore about Schmitz, is basically showing a connection between, I want to say the name is Fred Johnson or something. I'm not exactly sure, and I have to look it up again. But basically, this Farid Bang, who's now one of the most popular rappers, or was for a long time in Germany, had a handler, and that guy's handler basically had very interesting connections in the US to Bohemian Grove and whatever else. So it just shows like this lineage of, you know, trauma bonding, trafficking, high level initiation thing, which you undergo, and then you become very famous. And then after some time, it turns out that, oh, also you potentially may be doing things which the general public would consider, well, illegal or whatever else, right? But yeah, basically the point being here that just a German mainline rapper ultimately can be traced back to Bohemian Grove if you follow along through history. And it may well be that this is how the power and the media prowess gets inherited, right? Okay, and here, this is a different video by Traukanen Promi. Again, I think he's one of the most relevant researchers in German. Even if you don't speak German, I don't know why he's not translating all of his stuff into English, honestly, but I've never spoken to him, so I can't say. But this is also worth checking out and reading with CC, because he really has a unique and interesting take. And he's also been on this whole, you know, Roman Empire thing. Oh, look here with Roy Cohen. All of that.
And Trump coin.
So he's definitely somebody interesting to check out. Oh yeah, and here just some more guys from Germany and Austria talking about US politics. One or two of them I've even met. Nice guys, top right and bottom right. Yeah, just again, if someone really is deep into these things, if you want to know like the perspective from, you know, European German perspective, that's a bit more alternative and interesting on the US elections and whatever is happening in America, you can check these guys out. You know, not saying they're on top of everything and everyone has their own, of course, opinions and beliefs, but it's one of the better type of panels with some interesting information and insight. Oh yeah, okay. And this is kind of funny, because now the past few years, again, there was a big talk about Austrian state media, and here Jörg Haider, we brought him up before. He was the big, you know, right-wing golden child in the late 80s and in the 90s. Eventually, they claim that he died in 2008 because of a car crash, although there's 100 red flags surrounding that event. And also it was well known that he was never drinking, but then supposedly he was so drunk during that day. And then they said, oh, we're so sorry, after the autopsy, we're going to keep the results for 10 years. 10 years later, the time would come to release it. And they said, oh, we're so sorry, we kind of lost it. So it's not unlikely that he was not intoxicated. And it was so strange because apparently at the site, there were police cars or uniforms or something like this, or individuals. But the issue was that the police uniform was like the old variant, and all kinds of very strange things. The best thing I heard about it is apparently in the DDR, this was a common way to do it, which is if you're coming around the corner and then you flash some lights, which disorients you, but also in terms of the injuries that he sustained, it very much looked like as if there was some type of detonation within the car. His car was a Volkswagen Phaeton, which is basically built like a tank from what I understand. And I just pulled out this video because here he's basically reading live on air and telling people, look, there was a directive giving in the newsroom to basically deliberately report negatively, I guess, about the petition they had back then, which maybe even was to put on the CC, please. Then you can see something. Yeah. So here, of course, the first they're arguing about whether he's allowed to read it or not. He's arguing with the moderator because the moderator doesn't want it. So here is the minutes of the editorial meeting, November 24th in 92. And they say, this is just about one department, and they say, just continue it. Yeah, so basically they should inconspicuously work against this referendum, which he was starting back then. So basically giving the state broadcasting media a directive from the top to agitate against a particular political agenda. And it's just kind of funny when you see it live, because it's obvious that the moderator is not happy with this guy reading it out. And it's just so hilarious because, of course, already now almost, what is it now, 30 years ago or whatever, people were on top and were even revealing that, look, your state media is not completely independent, even though they always love to pretend that they are, the authority in a white dress or something. Yeah. So I guess eventually he was upsetting too many people. I've shown you previously reports about him by Dr. Ewald Stadler, who was his friend / opponent at some point, and who also talked about Haider, the guy you just saw, and basically said, well, the problem with Haider was that during the day he went to the Freemasonic Lodge, and then at night he went to the, I don't want to say, let's just call it disco, very liberal disco. There was always the rumor of whether or not he may not be completely heterosexual, let's say. Rumors only, of course, right? Always what you have with these right-wing individuals. It's a recurring theme. But anyways, the speculation is that eventually he maybe upset too many people or the wrong people. And also, because I recently found it again, just to anyone who wants the background on this, because last time I didn't remember the name. Let's see, there we have it. Here we can see it. I'm sending you the link in 1 second. This is an interview which was made with a rabbi or former rabbi, however you want to call it. Here it is in private chat, about this event of Haider dying. And at least this rabbi, from what he claims, he also wrote a book about it a few years ago, which should be publicly
right here?
available. Yes, just skip into the middle so we can see the guy.
Same one, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right. So on the right-hand side. And this rabbi basically is claiming, I'll put it like this, that Jörg Haider, the individual you saw before, was deliberately killed, and also that the Freedom Party, even back then, was basically infiltrated by Mossad. And whatever is true or not, but what I can tell you now is they are, how should I say, of course, very, very, very Israel-friendly. So again, the same thing, even though they always say, oh, they are so right-wing, of course they would be against Jews or whatever. Ultimately, they are usually very Israel-friendly also today. So that's an interesting thing. People can check this out. And here, last thing of the section, the creation of nationalism, or how recent is nationalism in Europe. This is the so-called Urburschenschaft, or they have a nice X on their flag as well. The Burschenschaften are officially like student organizations with a conservative / nationalistic or patriotic maybe ideology. Also, they are fencing. So sometimes you see people that have like a mark on their face, and then they call it Schmiss. And that's usually then how you can recognize, oh, you're not only in a student organization, but you're in one that is fencing. And that's, of course, portrayed to be the ultimate evil in Austria.
Really?
I only remember once.
You guys are anti-fencing?
No, but everything is associated with Hitler.
When did Hitler fence? Is that a thing he did? I thought he painted.
No. And there's not really, let's say, a relation of that type. But basically, if I would put it in a very not exact and not this
frat boys.
Yeah, frat boys. But basically, if you would say in a sense that the Freemasons as a power group would be generally seen as the more liberal, then the Burschenschaften as a power group would be seen as the more conservative, basically. They also have relations to Catholicism.
Based,
oh, well,
bro.
Yeah,
bro. They made me fence in school. It's all right.
And then just as we've been talking about it, we can go on. So this is just something interesting. Anyone who wants to research the origin of Germany and nationalism in Germany, or the beginning of national unity, these Burschenschaften are relevant to check out. And then here, just the last thing. When I put this together, I didn't know yet what Musk is going to do. And anyhow, here it's not very contentious. When you see, we can watch it. You see him flying in, and they say like, oh, he changed the mustache, so it's not a big deal. But it's kind of funny because Captain Planet says, oh my God, it's such evil emanating from this individual. It's like kryptonite, you know. And I just thought it's funny. So yeah, whatever.
What the heck? He takes the V2 rocket away from him.
Yeah,
Holy cow! Oh my gosh! All right, you got to
yeah.
be careful about hipster painters, though. It's true. They could always get you. Captain Planet's a great show, though, man. Whoopi Goldberg was way prettier as a cartoon. Did you know that?
That's for sure,
dude.
So I hear just some stuff about Captain Planet and environmentalism, which ultimately then appears to relate to the WikiLink,
Dude,
this
I'll tell you
Earth.
what, they tell you right away that New York Jews are in charge and that like Eastern European, Ukrainian girls are hot. Like you learn that really early on about the world from Captain Planet. It's cool. It's a good show. I'm a
This
fan.
is just some
also that
critique.
people that do bad do it for fun. They're all sadomasochists.
But what they
who
say in
all
this,
do it
what they
for
say in
fun.
this critique actually is that it's a bit strange because always the guys who are polluting stuff are kind of like portrayed as working class and kind of like deformed. And also, even at one point, apparently there is a villain, but all he's doing is like he's recycling or something like that. So it doesn't completely make sense. But I haven't watched all of Captain Planet. When I saw it as a child, I thought it was kind of cool and fun because, of course, you have the elements and all of that. And, you know, sure, take care of the environment. But anyways, it's just
I've seen a lot of Captain
critique.
Planet. I remember one time I was visiting SeaWorld and I was going to go see Shamu the whale in captivity as a child. But first, in the morning, I got to watch 2 episodes of Captain Planet. Man, that was a good day. Captain Planet's a really messed up show, though, the more you look at the villains, because, yeah, they're all horribly disfigured and they're trying to destroy your lives and they're getting off on the idea of destroying the world. That's like all of them have some sort of a almost almost a neurotic interest in polluting and covering the world with slime and scum. And you know, there's like this horrible rat guy who's excited to get kids addicted to pills and everything like that. And there's probably something else behind it, but they don't really show too deeply. They just kind of give you the idea that you need to have some sort of like world order in order to protect us against like these criminals. But okay, what about, did Captain Planet save the world?
And
Debate.
Just more info about that. We can skip through that. Also, I don't exactly remember the details of the movie anymore.
There were like, this is a great.
Or maybe how much it brainwashed people. I mean, definitely it helped the Green Party for sure.
I mean,
yeah,
how successfully brainwashed is my generation from Captain Planet? I'd be like 80%, 87%, 82 to 87% probably. You know,
not to say 88%. Yes,
it was worth it. Are you kidding me? I mean, some of the lessons you learn, like this lady, she genetically modifies cattle. You know, she makes these big fat RBST cattle. You know, no regrets, dude. No regrets from Captain Planet. Earth Day. One time, oh, by the way, 2 days after Hitler's birthday, too, nonetheless. One time when I was a community college senator, we had to spend a certain amount of money every holiday. And of course, Earth Day was like, you know, for California community college, it's like the most important non-denominational like holiday, right? So we had to spend like $10,000 that day. So we got a bunch of these clubs at the school to make the food because they wanted us to give this money to a Cisco kitchen. And we're like, no, we'll just have like the Mexican Latino club make food. And they're like, yeah, but like, what about vegetarians? Like they can make bean burritos, you know? And they're just like, you know, freaking out. Like, but you can't just do that. Like, what about the health effects and all this stuff? You can have a health inspector, you know, they'll use the school kitchens. And they kept trying so hard to make us give them the money. And we're like, no, like we're taking this money, you know? And like, what about the media? Like we're hiring our friend's band. So I, at some point, I'll have to interview Maitland, like, because Maitland's band, we paid his band to like play at the event instead of like, and all the money that they were trying to steal from the university, like, or from school. Earth Day was great. Good times. 2 days after Hitler's birthday.
Yeah. Note the picture, of course, the blue marble picture. So whatever it is, definitely also like a huge psychological operation. Even I know individuals that are celebrating this still. And while to a certain extent, of course, with the basic ideas, one would obviously agree, there's a lot other brainwashing than getting attached to it, which at least I definitely do not agree
You got to
with
look at
at
it
all.
differently, bro. It's like 420.
Always. That's always. I know. I know. And that's the other thing, which is kind of hilarious. Yeah, totally. So, and then for the very last one, there is one more about the Oracle CEO, Larry Ellison, with Donald Trump, 1984. Yeah, so just basically showing how it's like 1984 related, whatever he's talking about. We'll have to talk more about, what this Stargate actually is or not. And,
It's a nuclear city, basically. We're going to build a giant city like Chernobyl, and it's going to have enough power to run the most powerful supercomputers in the world, not just computers like you're used to either. It's going to be nuclear powered qubit, Higgs boson, vacuum, cold, deep, zero, true solid state, cold nano quantum computers and things like that. That's the goal. And then hopefully they'll be able to like bend time and space, or at very least break Bitcoin by 2030, which I think is the real goal. Is they want to be able to.
We'll talk
break
again about that in
Bitcoin
5 years. But why would they need to break it if anyhow they hold the wallet with 30% of the original tokens or coins?
I mean, because this is like the FTX scam. Get as much of the world's wealth into it before you break it as possible, right?
Yeah, always got to know, when to buy and when to sell. So now for the very last segment, we just go very, very briefly. Please, let's go from the bottom to the top.
We should spell extra like just with an X.
Yes.
Sorry.
Start with the last one first. This one comes last.
First, we're doing this right to left. Okay.
Yes. So here I just found it interesting because we're talking about different people and all of that, and this apparently is a whole village or something with little people.
It's like a Disney amusement park in China.
Kind of. Yeah, it's like Hobbitville for tourists or something.
Between this and a zoo, someone said. Well, I mean, the difference is that these people.
The difference is that they know that they're in a zoo, where everyone who's outside thinks that they're not in a zoo. That's the only difference.
If the zoos had open gates, that would be different. Like if you could just leave whenever you wanted to, but they had free cigarettes in the zoo, so you stayed if you were a monkey, That was something I noticed in the Argentina zoo. They had free cigarettes for the monkeys.
So that one is interesting. Then the other one, right, where someone says hasn't eaten in 16 years. You have to believe
what do you
it
mean
or not.
Hasn't eaten in 16 years? Nobody believes that, lady. Look at your smirk. You lie. You lying. You lying, girl. Haven't eaten in 16 years. Really? I mean, this guy does videos that seem like pretty reasonable sometimes, and he's like mainstream, right?
There's a whole thing about this guy in the back end, which no, this is not Eric, this is someone else. But again, too many million subscribers to completely trust everything. People can just take a look at it and consider themselves whether she's not eating food, lying or not. And of course,
this is just if I was bored. Like, why is she? You know what I mean? Like, what is she doing?
No recommendation to do anything, but people can check it out. It's interesting. But what I really would love to have people check out is the last video. I can close this tab because that's a really amazing interview. It's really too short. Again, you can close this. Yeah. So here, this is a village elder in. I want to say it right now. It should say in the description, I believe, I want to say Zimbabwe, but I'm not exactly sure now. Zimbabwe, yeah. Zimbabwe. And this guy is like 70 or 80 years old. He's the local village elder medicine man. And the things he says, I very much agree with. He's talking about, how to treat the animals, how to live in harmony with nature, what type of clothes he's wearing and why. And just if you get the energy of this guy, what he looks like and what he's talking, I think it's very legit. And especially everyone in the West, something that, they can learn something from, and very positive. And also, of course, he's asking, how can you be healthy and so on. And he's saying stuff like, well, only natural herbs and all of that. So at least, from my bias.
Okay, well, this guy's from Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe, let's look up Zimbabwe for a second. Zimbabwe, it used to be called Rhodesia, right? So let's look up Rhodesia 60, 70 years ago,
Yeah,
80 years ago.
You want to tell me
Oh,
this
wait,
was
this
a
is what,
New
this
World
is
Order
what Zimbabwe
project?
used to look like before the Medicine Man? I don't know. I feel like
Well,
feel
the
like the
medicine man
Medicine
is
Man
living
versus
in a
like
remote
the
village in the
European
country, of
car.
course.
Am I crazy here? I'm just saying. I feel like that guy seems like a little bit Lord of the Flies compared to that. But hold on, what about this one? Let's look at this one. Salisbury suburbs of Zimbabwe. I mean Rhodesia. I mean Zimbabwe. What am I supposed to do? I should stop dead naming this place. But this
But
place
this is a
doesn't even
city.
exist anymore. I guess it's cool to have like medicine men instead of metropolitan gardens. Bummer. I think I like Rhodesia, dude. It looks pretty chill.
The thing is, do you want to live in cities or do you want to live in tribes?
Why not a little bit of both?
Exactly, sure.
I mean,
I'm
why
not
just
hating
have
on
like soccer tribes?
I'm not
like
hating on
in
any
Europe.
model, but I'm just saying that because most people in the West are so much into the city lifestyle, of course, and all the brainwashing that comes with it, it's very refreshing to hear such a village elder speak and tell you what he's thinking about, life and health and happiness. Very inspiring interview, I think.
What I want to do, I want to make a bunch of like Rhodesia wave, like vaporwave videos of Rhodesia. I mean, somebody should.
It's already halfway there, so don't even need a lot of filters for that, I think, by the way this looks.
Yeah. And on that note, well,
thank
what
you
do you
all
think?
for holding it down so long.
Here.
Thank you.
You're watching NEUROPA. The greatest
Wonderful
show.
day, everyone.